Hello folks, welcome back to another Monday night live stream. As you can see, I am not alone again. 3 weeks on the trot now. We've had somebody with us, and I'm getting used to it now. So I'm sure she takes no introduction, but we have Annie from Bad Squiddo Games with us this evening. Hello Annie, welcome to the chat.
An honour to be here.
In person, face and everything. So, thank you very much for joining me. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. We're going to be chatting about all manner of different tabletop things tonight. We'll be chatting about games. We'll be chatting about a bit of industry insider knowledge from you, what it's like to run your own miniatures company, and I just want to know what stuff you're up to as well. So, not like not like sneaking around, find out what you're up to. I mean, what you're up to as a business. So nothing dodgy. No, we'll keep it all above board. I promise you.
Yeah.
So let's have a.
It's very hot in the UK as well for those non-UKers.
Just a bit.
Why we're going to slowly melt over the course.
You will over a period of time just see us gradually just like shrinking like the witch of the Wizard of Oz, just melting away kind of thing. And I'm not trying to do some kind of like cool 90s DJ thing with the headphones. My little boy's just gone to bed next door. So I'm kind of trying to listen out, make sure he's not wandering around. So it's not me trying to look cool. I just thought I'd say that. So let's have a look and see who we've got in the chat tonight. We've got Evil Ginger Miniatures was in nice and early. Said a very strange woman's going to make an appearance, I understand. I'm assuming this must be...
That'll be interesting when she arrives.
We've got Ian there as well, Lord Maiden. Hello to you as well, fella. We've got Blizzards. We've got Ortega as well. He said he's back. He said he still can't stay tonight. Ortega comes every week, leaves a little note saying, I can't stay, but I'll see you in the rerun. So he always gets his little message in the rerun as well. We've got Super Pumpkin Man. We've got Type 40 Tartars. We've got Cordos in as well. War Dude said excited to hear what's going on. We've got Soul 31. Yoakum's in as well. Silver MKI said no hamsters were harmed in the making of this video. We've got Christian as well, who's our moderator. He's kind of wrangling the chat there as well. Dave Mackay, Dan Pillow, VJ. Nice to see you back in Australia there, mate. I hope you had a uneventful trip back home. Evil Ginger says, I'm not sure of the temp, but it's too hot regardless. It is pretty hot, to be fair. As you can see, I'm in a slightly different location today. My wife's away with work, so I had to kind of bring everything from the garage inside. And the garage is obviously outside. There's no windows. Everything's insulated. And I went in to get all of the stuff, and it's like an ice box in there. It's beautiful. And it's like, and then I brought it all into the house, into the spare room, and it is like an absolute oven in here. So yeah, if you see me melting, that's exactly why. We got loads of folks in the chat tonight. Everybody's having a bit of a chit chat here. And Andy 2D6 as well, hiding in the bottom and saying hamsters may have been harmed emotionally by the title. Yes. I did say that Bad Squiddo Games ate my hamster. I thought clickbait seems to be it's the buzzword at the minute. So let's just try and we'll probably get Peter and a few other kind of animal rights campaigners in, but never mind. So yes, let's start with you then, Annie. So for those that don't know Bad Squiddo Games, can you give them the elevator pitch? Can you tell everybody what you do and what Bad Squiddo Games does?
Okie dokie. Back in 2015, Bad Squiddo Games was formed, specialising in female miniatures. That's it. We also do guinea pigs, but not hamsters yet. So we're really small. And we now have a massive range of scenery as well, and scenic bits and bobs. The reason for setting up Bad Squiddo is at the time I was very fed up with the lack of female miniatures that had clothes on, and it's, as we have learned from the internet,
yes.
you say one thing and people kind of skim over what you said in order to shout back at you the other thing. So quite quickly I had this whole like, you're trying to ruin the hobby, you're trying to take boobs away, and all this. Like, no, it's just to make more choice. So if you just want like a female knight, you can buy one. Because up till that point there were barely any that I could find anywhere.
Yeah.
It was all about increasing the choice
of
the female minis that are abound. And we've got over 500 now.
Amazing. That's quite the range now, isn't it? Yeah. And you were saying you got a lot of like sort of scenery or scenic type pieces as well now?
Yeah, it's the last sort of 3 years we've mega expanded into Resin Scenics, working with Bristol, who used to run Bristol's Extraordinary Market.
Yeah.
He wanted to focus more on sculpting instead of running everything, so we bought most of the range he had, which at the time felt like a lot, but it's now small compared to what we've made since then.
Yeah.
So Bristol's continued working with us, and that's the thing that a lot of people don't notice, because it's that, like, you're famous for one thing, so everyone goes, oh, that's Bad Squiddo, they do woman stuff.
Woman
And
stuff.
yeah, but I see people say that at shows. They'll sort of walk by and you'll see someone say to their mate, oh, that's some woman stuff. But yeah, the terrain range, it's like little scenic bits and bobs that are really cute and different.
Yeah.
And they're all hand sculpted, and they're all hand cast in resin, and like super nice resin as well. So they're really lovely.
Cool.
So yeah, we do quite a lot now. I've got behind the screen, if you see me looking off, it's because I've got 5 flat guinea pigs. The tablet that this is on is clipped onto their pen, and they're all just like the heat. They're absolutely fine, but they're all just like flat lying around. It's just really cute, so I have to keep looking.
I thought you were going to say you were kind of like powering it by them running around a wheel or something like that. Just just
they wouldn't be powering anything right now.
No,
I know that.
I know that feeling. So you're Nottingham based, is that right? That's you're around the old lead belt.
I am right in the heart of the lead belt. Bad Squiddo Games is in Lenton. Also in Lenton, but Lenton is where all the stuff is, apart from Mantic.
All the stuff,
they're at the other end.
So are you from Nottingham originally?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm from near this sort of Kettering Corby area, at Rockingham.
Oh, there you go.
But I spent time sort of everywhere. A lot of time in Cardiff, where I set up Bad Squiddo, and then 4.5 years ago, I moved up here, specifically because of the lead belt. Yes, which is interesting, I guess, because a lot of people start off here, and it's sort of became the lead belt from that, like working at GW, leaving, staying here, whereas I actually pilgrimaged over.
So do you manage to get a bit of kind of like networking and done with other kind of sort of creatives, I suppose is the word? Because one thing I noticed, kind of, obviously I'm up in Newcastle, I'm kind of up here on my own a little bit. It's kind of it would be nice to have other folks to meet face to face for a cup of coffee now and again. So
before the pandemic, we had like actual meetups for sort of anyone vaguely industry, sort of like. So I met quite a few people from that, including people I ended up working with, which was really cool.
Oh, that's good.
And just from like everybody in Nottingham, if they don't work for something war games, they know somebody who does. So I feel like I'll meet someone outside of this world, like at a gig or something, and then sort of 5 minutes into the conversation, they'll mention something about wargaming. So it is like super ingrained here. And I've got a whole bunch of my neighbours are all GW types, so it's like everywhere. But that's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I find it really interesting because obviously wargaming, I guess, outside of Nottingham is something that you are either into or you're probably not that aware of. So to kind of just constantly bump into other people who work in the industry must be quite fun.
And everywhere. If you go to Tesco, there'll be someone. I think do call it the Hollywood of wargaming, but it's really cheesy, but it is. There is just someone everywhere you go. Especially when you go to see bands, that's usually quite funny. It's usually like you.
Yeah, just looking around the room. I don't know who you all are. Folks saying some of the volumes a little bit quiet. I've just turned it up a little bit, folks. Let me know if that's all right. I didn't want to blast your ears off, so let me know everything's okay. I think it looks better now, anyway. Let's have a look.
Me.
I think to be honest, I think it's a bit of both of us. I think, but I just I've got all the little kind of lines bouncing around, and they seemed loud enough, but maybe they weren't. Let's have a little look on here as well. So Ratty Rex is saying the peaks have melted. I hope they haven't. Yeah.
I wish I could tilt it without all the things falling off. They're all little frozen water bottles, and half of them are lying on them. And I've got a big like stuffed meat. It's not really meat. It's like a dog toy that looks like a stuffed meat.
I thought you were feeding sausage rolls or something there.
Yeah, it always just looks weird. Like, he's on his big meat.
Who we got? We got Major Threat Miniatures. Hello to you. John Wilkinson's in. Mitchell Bridges. We got Mighty Lancer Games in as well. Hello there. Nice to see you. And we've got a good old mix tonight. Nice to see some new
game.
faces and the regulars as well. So if you've got any particular questions, those of you in the chat tonight, if you put at BlackJack Legacy and then type your question, it just highlights it on my screen and I get to kind of pick it out and I can see it a bit easier rather than trying to read every single comment, because as I can see, you're all very chatty this evening. But we'll get back to you, Annie, now. So you started playing Warhammer Fantasy, that's right, didn't you? You used to play quite a bit of Fantasy, I believe.
A lot, yes.
Yeah. So what factions did you play?
Largely vampire counts and chaos dwarves, although they were chaos gnomes because they were heavily converted into sort of gnome army. So yeah, I used to play a lot of Warhammer tournaments, so I've got that as my credentials. So when people go, it's, you know, even though you don't need it, as being a woman in hobby, you get the online people going, oh, you're turning up trying to make our hobby woke, and it's like, I've been here forever. I saw someone else on YouTube earlier, who's it, Lace and something, and she did a short video that was pretty much like, to my haters, and it was like, you're coming along, you're hating me. It's like, I have created a lot of the things that you are liking and you don't know. It's like, yes, amazing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
We've always been here.
It's funny because I guess ignorance maybe not the right word, but I guess it's not necessarily sort of thrust into my face how it must be to be sort of questioned of whether you should. I mean, let's be honest. I'm a middle-aged man with a bit of a beard gut, a bald head and a beard. I'm kind of like, I'm target nerd basically. Let's be honest. So I'm not really standing out and kind of pointing fingers at me. But so it must be a bit weird to get those like sort of, you know, be all of a sudden you're woke because you're a woman in wargaming kind of thing. No matter whether you're playing, you're painting, or you're even in it as a business. Do you see that is it changing for the better, or is it? I mean, you tell me. How is it?
I definitely think it's changing.
Good.
And I'm aware partly as well that I almost have to question. Strange phrase, question my own privilege, because I think, oh, it's getting better. I'm like, no, it's because I'm getting more well known, so I'm being treated better, which doesn't necessarily mean, you know, for everybody. So I have to keep sort of double checking that. But I definitely think it is. I was thinking recently, back in the day. I don't know if you remember the Joey Berry.
I do. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So when she appeared, there weren't many. There were a few. I remember there was Girl Painting and Warhammer Girl or something, the American War Machine person.
Oh, it was.
But that was kind of it.
Miranda, wasn't it? Yeah, Wargaming Girl. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Joey appearing on YouTube, it just seemed to like break YouTube of people going, you can't be a hobbyist. Oh, this must be this must be for a research.
It must be fake or something. Someone's trying to trap us all by kind of like showing us a woman on screen. I remember that kind of like I wasn't doing YouTube at the time, I don't think, but I do remember seeing the whole thing around it and sort of seeing posts online about it. Like, is this for real kind of thing? Like are we being set up for something? And it's like, hey, like I can't believe
there's
people
nothing weird
I can't
about
believe
it.
people are questioning it. There's a person on screen who
going,
just
hi, I'm getting into this.
Yeah, there's a person on screen who looks to be quite enjoying a new hobby, happens to be a woman as well, kind of thing. Like it, but it just I remember those kind of like those, especially those early days. Once you've been doing it for a while, I think it's like you say, once you become a little bit more well known, I guess you become part of the, you know, almost part of the furniture a little bit, and they accept it. But it shouldn't be like that anyway, should it? It's a bit of a mad. It's a bit mad.
This was about 2012, I guess. It was about 10 years ago, if not a little bit more. So that was when I was playing a lot of Warhammer tournaments as well.
Yeah.
And so that went wild. It was the talk of the town that there was a woman doing the streaming of, you know, talking about it online.
Crazy.
But now because I was talking to her not that long ago, because me and her were on the Andy 2D6 show.
Right.
And we were talking about the sort of old days. And it was like, this was 10 years ago. And it was just so unusual, you know.
Yeah.
But now, like, there's so many streamers, Patreons, you know, just people around Twitter. There's loads of women online in the hobby space, which you kind of get used to, or if you're new now.
Yeah.
but you don't realize how different it was even just 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's
Where,
kind
well,
of
yeah,
weird.
everything you did was sort of like extra questioned. Like, what are your motives? I'm like, I just want to. Oh, what's that? I
That's it.
just want to play
Getting
the
animated now.
game.
Yeah, well, pitchforks are out. That's what it was. Why are you here? What do you think you're doing? What are you playing at? Yeah, but
Yeah, and it wasn't.
I can't believe that's been like about 10 years ago. I remember watching
Yeah,
those videos, but yeah, wow.
yeah, it's been. Yeah, and it's that like I don't know. I imagine this is how people that are older than me kind of feel like when I'd appeared, because I don't know. It's almost not gatekeeping, but they're like, you don't know, you kids today, you don't know
Yeah,
what
you
it
don't
was like,
you don't know
and
you're
like it
born.
is tough.
Yeah,
And I see a lot of like younger, new to the hobby,
yeah,
getting online, sort of girls with really girls, sort of early 20s,
yeah,
and occasionally you'll see the people that go, well, I don't see the problem. It's absolutely fine. I've not experienced any trouble, so it must be a myth. And you're like, no. It's like we
yeah.
fought before this.
We
But
bled
yeah,
we
on the
bled
other hand,
null oil for people like you.
it's a bit like fighting that inner thing like with heat at the moment. The people going, well, back in our day, we'd just burn out in the sun. We're like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't burn out in the sun
Yeah,
anymore.
that'd be quite
So
wise,
yeah, I
wouldn't
don't know. I've gone on to a ramble, but yes, it's better. There's a lot more visible women. I think visible's key as well,
yeah.
because they have always been a decent amount, but not so visible.
I think it's a funny one because I think it's you can almost start to take things for granted now because, like you say, there are a lot more kind of sort of females in and around streaming and gaming. And like I remember when I started, really one of the first games I really played was Malifaux, and for me when I first started playing games, there was a few kind of women were playing Malifaux as well, and to me it just, well, that's just it. But I remember people telling me like, oh no, this is quite unusual. Like Malifaux is a game that's attracting women to wargaming, and it was like, really? Like I think it was. I found that quite strange when I first started, because I didn't start gaming until my 30s. It wasn't like I'd kind of done it like for years as a kid. So it just, to me it was like, well, yeah, there's why wouldn't there be women here, kind of thing. And it wasn't until it was pointed out to me that like, yeah, this is actually quite unusual. Like, and I thought, oh, that was quite strange. There's a question here for you, Annie, saying, can people visit Bad Squiddo like GW, Mantic, or Warlord? Do you have like a store or anything like that people can visit? No.
Sorry.
There you
It's
go.
kind of my idea of hell, having a job.
I can imagine, yeah.
People that are coming, sometimes if I make an exception if people are coming from abroad or something
Yeah,
like that, but generally I don't, because it's just me in an office.
yeah.
And because of the way my brain works, somebody schedules, even if they come at like 2 p.m., it kind of takes over my whole day, because my brain goes, someone's coming at 2, someone's coming at 2. Can't do
so
anything.
nothing else gets done because you don't want to be in the middle of something.
Yeah, it's that whole like can only focus on the one thing. So that's largely why. Also
Yeah,
that I can be at things like trade shows. I can be really like
yeah.
all my energy, and it's great. And if it was day to day in like a standard shop, I'd be burned from black books because my like energy is so low. But obviously, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm generally very tired all the time.
yeah.
Apart from when I can do something fun like this and then some energy comes from nowhere. But it's a lot of hard work.
Oh,
And the larger places, obviously like Mantic and all that,
yeah,
they've
they've
got
got staff
people
and things, haven't they?
specifically to
Of
run.
course.
Yeah. I don't yet.
It is tough when you're doing it on your own as well, because like any time you stop working to, even for a bit of a conversation with somebody, unfortunately that's no work getting done, is it, kind of thing. I think it's kind of, sometimes people forget that stuff when you're working for yourself. Tony's got a question as well.
Strict in the week as well.
Oh, yeah, you have to be, yeah. Tony says he's got a question for Annie. I'm about to start painting Annie the pack bearer for my dungeon. What colour would you like your hair to be?
Oh.
There you go. You've got a choice.
What is it now?
Tony's
just wet.
Tony's a good painter. He'll do it justice. What colour would you like? Have you got a preference?
Pink.
Pink. There you go, Tony.
Pink
You heard it. You heard it. You heard it from Annie's mouth. Pink it is.
That's the point. If I keep doing this, it's not because I'm sort of like that. My hair was wet and it's drying. I'm trying to keep it off my skull. Although it's not very bright at the moment.
It's just the heat, just killing. That's why it is, man. We'll
I was
blame
about
this.
to re-dye it, and then I thought, nope. In this heat, I'm just gonna end up with people like that.
We'll blame the sun for something else as well. I think that's the way we just blame the sun for everything at the minute.
Everything.
Yeah, that's the best way. Jez Hunter, nice to see you, mate. How you doing? He's saying, as a bloke that's been in gaming for decades, I bloody love having women in games. More people in general, gaming is great. I think that's kind of my kind of thought is just more people. It doesn't really matter whether it's whether it's men, women. It can be guinea pigs, whatever it is. Like more people finding out that actually it's quite fun, regardless of where they come from, kind of thing.
I've got a guinea pig in stroking distance just here. Oh. I can take a photo on my phone and show you on the screen.
Let's do it, yeah. Let's do it. Big McDan School, nice to see you in, mate. Richard Coulson says, I love the Bad Squiddo Gothic Horror My Last Sunrise range. Any plans to expand it? I saw the little fist pump there.
After I show you Dave. So I've just been... see my arm go up and giving him a little head stroke.
Looking good.
Yes, they are currently waiting on me to do some stuff for my lesson rides. But there's going to be... I've never said it. There's going to be some mounted things. So those latest, recently we've released a bunch of undead horses and livestock and unicorn.
Nice.
So not just women's stuff.
Not just women's stuff.
But they're going to get some riders. So that's part of the brand new scoop. Ah,
you heard it here first, eh?
Yeah.
So you kind of your range is expanding out now, isn't it? It's not just kind of there's a lot more. Did I hear you recently saying you kind of expanding into more fantasy stuff at the minute? Because you do quite a lot of kind of historical stuff.
Yeah.
Not intentionally, but that's just what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Historical's my favourite aspect of it.
Yeah.
But one of my sculptors kind of just is uncontrollable. Occasionally he'll kind of just produce something, and that will be almost what starts off a side range. So we originally weren't do that much fantasy, and he was pretty much kind of like, done this. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Do another one. Like, oh, that also is cool. I'm like, oh, we have a lot of these. And that's been going well, and also to just get into more areas. That, to hook people all the way in.
Nice.
Which is always a good thing. So yeah, we've started branching off into a bit more fantasy, horror, because it's one of my favourite. So yeah, we do have a horror genre which has men in it. We even do some men miniatures.
I tell you what, you've changed.
I know, man stuff. That's it. They go around the trade show going like, "What's on that?" It's all man stuff. Man stuff. There's one guy once, he went, he had his son, and he came and he was looking, and he said, "Have you got any, like, men?" No, it's all, they're all in miniatures, all the signs and stuff. And he went, maybe something for your sister, and walked off. It's just like...
Because female miniatures are obviously for females, and male miniatures are obviously for men. That's that's obviously the way.
Like, not even gonna.
Yeah, I don't think that's how the world works, but never mind. Yeah, I like horror as a genre as well, and like it's my favorite. Like if I'm reading books, if I'm listening to kind of audio books, if I'm watching movies, horror is always my thing. That's kind of like that's what I enjoy. But miniatures wise, like we've talked about this on previous live streams about like horror games. It's hard to capture like horror because I guess the tension doesn't necessarily come across in miniatures games. But there's a few kicking about at the minute, so I'm kind of interested to see what stuff you're doing as well, and I can use it in those kind of games.
The current horror games then that you were...
There's a one called Don't Look Back, which I believe is quite new. From, is it BlackJack Miniatures, I think it is, which is kind of like, looks a little bit like your almost stereotypical teen horror film with a slasher kind of chasing gangs of people and stuff. So it's a bit more kind of modern day stuff. But things like Dracula's America, I like that kind of that's a bit of a cool kind of concept of the game as well. But to be fair, I paint more than I play as well, if I'm honest. Like, let's be honest, I think most of us do if we're kind of hobbyists. So just painting cool minis is kind of half the battle, I think.
Osprey have always got a good bunch of stuff coming out from lots of different writers. That's always one to keep an eye on.
I must admit, Osprey stuff seems to fly under my radar for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, I'm aware of it, and I know they do a lot of stuff, but for some reason, it just never seems to kind of. I never seem to see it very often. I must make the effort to kind of like look into it a bit more, I think. Andy's saying, "All hail Dave." he's making an appearance.
So cute.
Oh, Tony's saying that pink it is for the hair. He says he'll paint it up, take a shot in the dungeon. He's been making this like diorama type kind of dungeon thing, which looks amazing. So there's like a dungeon above ground. Well, it's below ground, but then below the dungeon as well, he's put like water and stuff as well. We'll have to get some pictures and show you. But if he's going to paint it up, get it in the dungeon and then get you some cool pictures.
I love Pack Mule Annie. It's one of my favourites. Not just because it's me. It wasn't intended to be me. It ended up as me along the
way. Not that so vain as I want every miniature to look like me. Not like that.
I also am doing that. But
well, yeah, that's your privilege
you
to
have
do.
The power to do.
It's your Wouldn't everyone? That's casting my own image. That's the way to do it.
I'm trying to put an Annie in all different eras, like Blackadder.
Oh, love the idea. Love it.
We haven't got as many yet, but we need to get. We've got World 2 Annie, Sci-Fi Annie, Fantasy Annie now. I think we need Shield Maiden Annie.
Are we going to get a horror Annie as well?
Yeah.
Yes. VJ is asking, where was it here? What about Squiddo mainly cast in? Is it resin or metal, and is it multi-piece or single-piece stuff?
It's a good question. Something I like talking about.
Yeah.
So most of the miniatures are in metal. We use a high. I like talking about the construction and stuff because a lot of people don't know. So a lot of the figures are metal. We have a tiny amount of lead, but it's called American pewter. So if they're 100% pewter, low lead, they get a bit, which a lot of the American companies have. I find them a bit too brittle.
Yeah.
They can get quite snappy. Whereas a tiny amount of lead, which is enough to go under the American safe radar, and still, it's such a small amount.
Yes.
That I was going to say if it's sanctioned okay by America, and then I thought about all the but anyway.
That's a whole different podcast, that one, isn't it?
Yeah. It's called American pewter. So it's very high quality in the terms of miniatures because you pretty much go all the way down to almost pure lead, which people still pretty much cast in. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And you can tell because you kind of get that black all over your hands.
Oh yeah.
Which you've been handling some of them. So this is my favourite metal mix because of that. It's strong, it's pliable. If something bends, you can bend it back, stuff like that. And it's cast very well. And anything a bit larger, and all the scenics are in resin.
Right.
And again, it's a really good resin hand cast. I see a lot, especially it's interesting because I assume that you have got quite a large sort of GW audience.
There's a bit of a mix, to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah. I see a lot of people sort of comparing things like metal and resin to plastic. And a lot of people will say, I don't work with metal or I don't work with resin.
Yeah.
But the materials aren't created equal. You can have crap metal. You can have crap resin.
You can definitely have crap plastic, yeah.
Yeah. I'm really proud that the resin and metal that we use is the top quality.
Yeah.
It's it's so good. And it took us a while to get there, except at the very start. There's a lot of not so great. And it's different skill levels within different casters.
Yeah.
So someone will have one bad experience with a material and kind of write that material off.
Yeah.
Whereas, because I was done with resin at one point. I was like, I'm done with this stuff. I'm getting it. It's got holes in it. It's snapping. And then it was my caster that we use now. When did we start working with them? It was the same time as the Gothic Horror Kickstarter. So 2016, I think. End of 2016, 17. We started with them. And they convinced me to do some resin because I was like, nope, not interested, no resin, nope, hate it. And they said, oh, well, we do casting for Atlantis miniatures. I don't know if you know those.
Yeah, they do really
like,
kind of like sort of like big high painting piece type things, aren't they? Like big centerpiece models. Yeah, they're fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I went, oh, now I'm interested.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I knew that those were really lovely. They were something I'd looked up to as really nice quality. And since then, yeah, I'm really proud of it. Yeah, it's something that I get quite passionate about. Obviously, I mentioned before about like the geocast thing.
We will.
but,
I think.
But that's also.
I was going to say, there's no time like the present. We might as well talk about that as well. But one thing I was going to say is that it always fascinates me that there's so many different kind of sort of almost different types of resin and different types of metal miniature. You'd almost think that by now these things have been made for so long that like everybody would go, well, that's the one you use, kind of thing. This is the best one.
Yeah.
But I guess there's costs that are factored into it. I guess there's a lot of it. There's a lot of skill in the person making the molds as well, and actually being able to orientate like the kind of the pose of the model so that it's kind of it comes out right for the, because of all the flows and the gates and stuff, the way the metal flows through the molds and things. It's almost like a science to it, isn't it? Really.
It is a mix of science and art.
Yeah.
I'm again really impressed by the people that we use, because some of the stuff I'll get back from a sculptor and go, I don't know if this is gonna go in. Because some of my earlier sculptures, anything that kind of had to be flat.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't flat, it then have to be in lots of pieces.
Yeah.
So the earliest stuff was in more pieces, and some of the stuff now, people that comment will say, "Look,
yeah,
like how have you made this a single piece? It's fantastic." But there's a lot of
No, sorry, go on.
People be like, "Oh, you can't do that." I'm like, "Oh, good luck." And there's a weird attitude of some of these sort of older casters and mold makers. They're like, "Oh, good luck doing that. That's not gonna work." And they're like, "We've done it. Here it is."
Yeah.
It works.
Because for years, kind of like metal miniatures were really almost two-dimensional, weren't they? There was always that sideways pose with the sword out and the kind of shield behind kind of thing, so everything was really flat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Arms out to the side kind of thing, legs out to the side. That's kind of like that's how I remember kind of metal minis being when I've seen older stuff. But these days it's very, very different. There's like things have moved on a hell of a long way.
So the technology for metal and resin is pretty much exactly the same as it's always been, but the skill has improved as people have got used to different techniques and things, which is quite interesting. When you see metal casting machines, they are just like some weird relic of the past.
Yeah.
But that's how it's made, and that's really interesting as well. And I really like that craft element of it.
Yeah.
The other part of the question before I mentioned alternative materials was how many pieces. So
yes, it was.
Now we strive to get stuff in as little pieces as possible, partly because I hate multi-part metal. It enrages me, and it will put me off making the miniature, because I'll get, you see the box, and you're like, oh, this is really cool, and then you open it up. For me, I'll just go, nope, that ain't happening. Nope. I don't want to glue all these bits, and then I knock it and they all fall off. I started realising how many people that it was working, that we were getting so many new hobbyists.
Yeah.
Which was a lot of time people's partners or children and things like that. So I also wanted to make sure that they were as inviting as possible. As well as, not just for beginners.
Yeah.
But for everyone. So most of the figures are single piece.
Yeah. I guess
there's again.
Yeah.
Oh.
Go on, I'm interrupting you. Carry on. Go on.
Right, I'll just monologue for ages if you don't.
That's all right. I was going to say, I guess as well from a quality point of view as well, like from a quality control, what single piece you're not going to be kind of missing pieces from packs and things as well, because it's a lot easier to know the model's there or it's not kind of thing, rather than it's missing this tiny feather that you stick to the hat kind of thing or something like that. Yeah, I've bought those minis before.
Definitely. So I like making models that are very, very not easy, but they are easy to paint.
Yeah.
I don't like things that have too much going on. And when I say this, I always feel like people who haven't seen my miniatures will think that they are those, like, really basic. So I try and strike somewhere in the middle so that they're nice looking models.
Yeah.
But they can almost be paint themselves. You just base coat them, put a wash, something like that on, and they look good.
Yeah.
So it's not disheartening either. And if you want to then, put some freehand on, you can kind of go up from that.
That's nice. 'Cause it is that fine balance between, like, you see, there's a lot of different skill levels of people, like, sort of painting miniatures these days. It's always expanding out to more and more people, and there needs to be enough detail on these things that you can dry brush and you can give them a wash and stuff like that, but not so overcomplicated that actually it just becomes kind of scary to get involved in. And it sounds like you've got a good kind of sort of right down the middle where everybody's happy with what they've got, kind of thing.
I feel a bit like some of the latest GW models have kind of gone the opposite way.
Yeah.
So in some sense, they're kind of making it more accessible to kids. But I think some of those kits, if I got them as a kid, I'd cry. Whereas as a kid, I was on that old hammer, single piece metal, and that was like, I'm not going to paint this and get disheartened because it doesn't look like the thing on the box.
Yeah.
So when there are a million pieces and you need a whole thing to put it together, it's not beginner friendly so much.
It's a really interesting point because, like you say, the kits have got a bit easier. Things like the push fit kits that GW do and stuff. But I've also heard more than once that kind of conversation of, like, I dare not start painting it because they're quite expensive and I don't want to mess them up, kind of thing. And and there is that fear of, like, I don't want to paint my first miniature, but I want to paint my first miniature, kind of thing. And it is a shame that, like, they are a lot more busy now. There's capes flowing around all over the place, and I mean, they're fantastic in what they do in terms of, like, being able to kind of make these fantastic minis. But I think the barrier sometimes of somebody just getting into it almost feels like quite overwhelming, really, when there's so much detail on something like that.
It's things like where the cloak will be attached to the base, and that's the small contact point.
Yeah, that's what's lifting it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're used to it, it's fine. Apart from if you're me and just drop them.
We all do that. Don't worry about it. We all do it.
Oh.
Searching around the carpet looking for the bits you've dropped, and I've randomly always had a grey carpet in a hobby room for some reason.
Yeah, it's always
I don't know why.
Sprue grey. Like, cool, that's that gone. But almost that sort of bomb-proof in them a bit as well.
Yeah.
But again, it's so part of what I do when I'm designing the miniatures is to try and make them look as cool as possible, but also still be practical. So that's quite a bit of a brain thing. Trying to balance that and make it so they can be cast in at least one piece. Sometimes it'll be two piece if they really have got a lot going on.
It's a bit. I think people don't even kind of consider it sometimes, that, like, that thought process that goes into it. It's not just make a cool model kind of thing. There's a lot more goes into that sort of thing than just that. Super Pumpkin Man saying at his last job he learned some crazy things while pewter casting 15mm historical minis in large spin casters. 15mm. Are your stuff mainly kind of 28mm, or do you do different scale stuff?
So all our stuff's 28mm.
Yeah.
I've been occasionally tempted to do other scales and then slapped myself and decided to stick, because it's already a bit of a niche if I start going outside of that. And all my own personal gaming mostly has been 28mm. I did very much get into Sword and Spear a while ago, and that was 15mm.
Yeah.
But it's hard because the cost don't scale down like they should.
Yeah, half
so
the size
think,
and half the price.
It must cost about half to get that miniature made, and it doesn't. But people want to pay less than half for it because they're so small, and because a lot of those companies are very old. The companies that sell 15mm, they're old. They've made their money a long time ago, and they're casting in their own house or something. A lot of the companies, a lot of these are lovely companies. It's not even they're old, but they can afford. They've always sold them. At like £1 for 10 figures or something.
Yeah.
So if you come out of nowhere, because I've seen it with a few recent companies making stunning, sort of 15mm, and I'll see the price and go, seems pretty good, and then I'll see the comments and everyone's like, nope.
I get there's an element of the audience as well, isn't it? Because that audience is probably quite entrenched in playing those games for years and years, and remember the £6 for 10 mini prices and
Yeah.
stuff, and everything feels like you get it with GW kind of fans now when they go, I remember paying whatever it was, like £15 or something for like 20 Space Marines or whatever. Well, it was before my time. I don't know the prices, but you still get that like you still get that now. So I think people kind of do forget. Like, I mean, there's some big overheads in casting a mini, and design. You got to pay designers. You got to get your molds made. You know, you've got to get them physically produced. You've got packaging. Somebody has to design packaging. You've got to buy packaging. You've got to package them. There's a lot of stuff I think that people maybe don't always factor into that kind of stuff.
It's so much, and it can be disheartening because a lot of the stuff I'll be doing I've got my pricing spreadsheets and stuff, and I'll be figuring out how much, and it's kind of like, that's how much it should cost. But that's how much someone's going to pay. No, down a bit more, down a bit more. And then I'll think, okay, I'll release it at that. And then someone will go, bloody hell, that's expensive.
It's like if only you knew, you don't know half of it, yeah.
Although, I know they only cost 20p to make. Like, one, they don't. But they did 20 years ago.
Yeah, things
but yeah,
changed,
even if they did, even if a single thing was 20p, which, I saw, I think it was the one with Discourse when you were talking about, like with the plastics. They are very cheap.
Once you get to that point, once you get to the point of production, the material cost is quite low.
Yeah.
When you're doing it in vast sums of quantities. Yeah,
it's like saying, pizzas only costs like 30p, and they're selling them for over a tenner. They're fleecing us. They're like, no, because you've got to you run your pizza company.
Yeah,
that's the whole point. So that can get quite frustrating because it's always difficult when people ask like how it's like the business is going really well, but if you say it's going too well, people go, oh, we're not going to buy it. You're doing all right then. We don't need to support you. And if you say, I'm actually like pretty skint at the moment, which is most of the time, it's like, oh, well, you mustn't be doing very well. There must be something wrong with your product. And trying to like keep a balance of that.
You can't win, can you? You can't win. Yeah, I kind of.
I'm up for more.
I have similar things with what I do as well, because obviously kind of like things like Patreon and donations and all those kind of things kind of support what I do. And there's always that middle ground of, well, I've got this kind of minimum amount of money that I need to make, that if I make less than that, this doesn't work as a part-time gig kind of thing. As doing this as my job, it doesn't really work. So I need to keep above that, but I'd like to get a little bit more above that. So then if I have a bad month, then the good month pays for the bad month a little bit. But then people see that you're making a few quid, and you kind of like to say, no, that's not how it works. That's just buffering from like the months I've not made enough to pay the bills kind of thing. It all swings and roundabouts. So yeah, it's until you. Well, I guess even as a company where you're taking on like people and stuff, all of a sudden one more person, like you have to sell a lot more stuff to pay the wage to bring one more person on, and that's when it becomes really difficult to grow like a small business.
Well, controversially, I don't have a problem with Games Workshop's prices, even Forge World. When people say, "Oh, these are," I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." And some of the stuff, I'm like, "Well, I couldn't produce that for that price." Obviously, because it's economy of scale and stuff. Because it kind of works both ways. Like, if you're small, then it's hard, and if you're big, it's hard. Obviously, they're in a totally different situation.
Yeah. But then they've got more.
Just your 20p.
No, then they've got their marketing teams, and they've got like they've got HR departments, and they've got a lot of other stuff that like smaller businesses don't have as well. So it swings and roundabouts. And I guess, and I know people complain about price, but they complain about prices for all companies, I guess, up and down. Yeah. I think people maybe give smaller companies a little bit more kind of, it's a bit more boutiquey. They're not making bigger runs. There's maybe a bit more leeway in that. But I guess at the end of the day, the market sets the price, doesn't it? People will people will stop paying it if it's too much. And I guess someone like
GW as a PLC, they're increasing that. If they increase their price, it's because they need to make the max profit possible. Because they legally have to. Yeah. If I increase my price, it's because I've gone balls. I can't really like absorb that anymore. I need to pay my rent. So that's quite the difference. So when you do get compared to those sort of large, and they go, well, such and such, such and such are doing this, you're like, well, yeah, of course they are.
Yeah. It was. I saw something
um,
online the other day. And it was about prices. It might have been like a fish and chip shop or something, and they were basically saying about how the prices of their oil had gone up, like their sunflower oil, the prices of electric to run the kind of the fryers and everything, the price of the fish, the price of the potato. They listed all of these things that had gone up in price and how much it had gone up by, because of like just the world we're in at the minute.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's not. I mean, it is literally everything. Everything is like rocketing up in price at the moment. So yeah, it's,
metals at least doubled since last year. Metal's gone absolutely crazy.
it's-
And yeah, even just things like the packaging. The packaging's gone up. The print went up like crazy last year. There was a point where I needed to get loads of print done for all the packaging.
yeah.
And it was, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't afford, this is a lot. And then it did go down a bit again, but it's nowhere near like it was. So, for example, like all the packaging we have has a printed picture of the Mini on it. And then that's quite an interesting where, to say that the different sizes of companies comes into play. Because then sometimes smaller companies will say to me, oh, why are you bothering with that? We just send ours out in a bit of tissue paper.
Yeah.
And so this is where I sound like I'm a little bit larger. So like the larger, it's different for different companies. So we do a lot of retail.
Yeah.
So we distribute via North Star. I have a lot of shops direct as well. So we have shops all over the world. So it has to be in attractive packaging. It has to be because it's going on a shelf somewhere. Yeah. So that's a cost that has to be in. Whereas if you are casting yourself in your shed, you can just send, nobody cares when you get it in the box particularly. Yeah. Although there's a level of that, because I do. Because when I buy something and it arrives in the grip seal, I go, oh.
I've had this conversation before on stream, and it's about like kind of the packaging is important. People don't think it is, and people will say, "I would happily just have my miniatures in a brown box if it meant I could get them cheaper." But it's like that's I know you think that, but that's not the way your brain works when you're out there shopping and stuff like that. It makes a huge difference.
Bit of your brain as well.
And it's and the packaging says something about your company as well. So like I think what you're doing is fantastic, and I agree. I think the problem is if you are very much kind of business to consumer direct sales, like you're not worrying about barcodes, you're not worrying about any of that kind of stuff. All those things take like it has to go on a shelf somewhere. Someone's going to scan it in a store. They're going to do stock counts and all that kind of stuff. There's consideration. So it's going to get handled a bit differently as well. Like it has to stand up to a little bit of kind of sort of a little bit of just people picking them up and looking at them and putting them back. Yeah, hopefully not putting them back, of course. But box fondlers. That's exactly the word I was trying to think of there. Box fondlers.
But so I'm in this sort of middle zone where I'm not quite at the next bit yet, but I'm not the tiny company. So I'll be compared to the tiny company and the massive company. So the tiny guys are going, well, we can just sell miniatures for £1 a miniature. I'm like, cool, that doesn't cover my costs. Yeah. Whereas the larger companies can sell things cheaper because they're large and they'll use China or they've got, again, economies of scale. So I'm kind of in this middle bit where I'm having to do all the proper things, do all the proper big businessy things.
But still, on your own.
On my own, which is why I'm always knackered. I have been struggling a lot this year with burnout and trying to reach this point where I can then get more help in.
Yeah.
But just this middle zone where I'm constantly knackered, and I love it. So I'm not complaining about it. But it is when you get that sort of online comment that's like, "Oh, £6 for 2 models." And I'm like, come on! And when you most of the time, I can just go, bloody internet people. But occasionally it'll just really hit, and you think, you know what? Yeah, I'm ripping you off.
If it hits you on a bad day, I tell you what, it hits. It really, you get it in the feels. It really does.
It's why I love Black Books. There's a bit where some guy's humming and ahhing over a book, and it's like 50p. He's like, what should I do with the extra 50p? I know, I'll get another acre in my money. That's why I'm not having a shop. But it can hurt, because it's especially when it's so personal. With all small business, it's like that, because you put your everything into it, And then people don't think, and they forget that you see as well. And I think sometimes they forget how small some companies are. So a lot think will go, I'll get emails to my packaging team.
Yeah.
Or like one was like, can you talk to your packaging team because I'd made an error, which I do make very, very rarely. I was like, yeah, I will. I'll tell them.
Don't worry, they're not getting sugar in their tea tomorrow. Yeah.
And it's good because it means obviously I'm doing enough that it makes people think there is a whole army of me.
I think there's an element of a lot of people don't necessarily understand how big or small sort of gaming companies are. Even the bigger companies are not like, they're not huge. You know, there might be more people working in your local pub than working like kind of like a gaming company, to be fair. And I think that often gets kind of overlooked. So because I guess you obviously rely upon a lot of like sort of freelance and contractors and things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe using the same ones, but like that's the vast majority.
So everyone that works with us is freelance or contract, and a lot of them work with other war games companies as well.
Of course, yeah.
So that's kind of like a cute, a cute little sort of system, because there'll be someone I'm like, can I have a sculpt or a paint job or something? They're like, I'm working on this for this other company. I'm like, bastards. So
they've nabbed my stuff.
Okay, the downside to me, I'm always really like friendly, and people will ask me stuff, and I go, I'll tell you anything, and then I'm like, oh balls, all my people have been nicked. North Star always nick my people, and I'd still do it. It wasn't that long ago. They said, "Oh, what's that?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've got a good painter. They're really nice. You should check." So, no.
Oh no.
So, yeah, and obviously, like, it's a relatively small amount of people that do actually produce for a lot of the smaller, me and a little bit bigger companies. It's like a core of artists.
Well, I guess what happens is you find someone that's good, and they're not sort of like, one company doesn't give them enough work to kind of have them almost full time, if you like. So then everybody kind of wants a little piece of the oh, they're good, I use these ones kind of thing. So then you're doing the artist a favor by getting them enough work, but then unfortunately they're not always available when you need them. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's it. So
they're not on a retainer. It's not like some kind of high paid lawyer who just sits there waiting until you need them kind of thing.
I really wish I had the funds to have in-house sculptors and painters. It's something that I think could make a big difference. But then it's like, I like that my sculptors work for other people, because it means they're doing lots of different bits. Yeah. So they develop other skills, whereas if they were just doing the whole sensible woman thing, you know, and if they're doing more monsters, it's just, and for them it's more interesting as well. I was going to say, I guess it keeps them from burning out on doing the same styles as well, so it's good for them. So my main sculptor, Alan, so most of the sculptors and painters you see, that people use, it's because we've seen them somewhere else and gone, oh, that's cool. You know, message them, or even message the company and go, who are you for that? Interesting. You got their email. So Alan Marsh. Once their name's out there, that's it. Yeah. So I can kind of get why people are secretive of it, but it's possibly one of the things that will hold me back from world domination, but I don't care, because I do just want to be I want to be nice. But the sculptors and painters, they make the things, you know, no matter how much of the design I've put into the miniature, they've made the actual thing. And I find it weird to be like, this is a bad Squiddo model. Who made it? Bad Squiddo. Yeah. I'm like, no, it was Alan. Alan is an amazing artist. This is Alan's work here. You know, so we put on the packaging, I put the name of the sculptor and the painter, which again has possibly been a bit of a detriment. But Raoul Parker used to do it, and it was really inspired me. I think Reaper do it with sculptors as well. It's surprising how few do though, and I don't think it's necessarily about getting their painters kind of like sort of pinched and sort of poached away to other companies. It's almost a case of like, you know, don't get too big for your boots kind of thing. Like, definitely. Like these are our products. You work for me. These are our products. Like you're part of a wheel kind of thing. You know, you're a cog in the machine sometimes. Yeah. You know, and that's unfortunate because it is artistic. Like sculpting is artistic. Like there's a flair to it, and people deserve to be kind of recognised for their work. So I like the fact that you do that. Yeah. Well, it's a little team. So even though on the one hand it is just me, that's just me doing the running. Like I've got like Marty does the artwork for us, and like I like just sort of putting them on the spotlight and going, look at this person, look what they've made. It's really cool. So yeah, Alan, I found because he was doing some work for Hinterlands that have shut down now.
Oh yeah.
But so they were doing some cool, what was it? Some cool like Napoleonic-y type lady stuff.
Lady stuff.
So yeah, that was like by Alan Marsh. Find Alan. Right. Hello. Could you do a sculpt for me? Yes. And that's kind of how it all. And occasionally, even with some of the sculptors, where I know the other, where I'm very friendly with the other companies that have the same sort of people, I'll message them and be like, "Can I have them for a bit? Like, your project's not due out for a bit, but I really need this. Can we just shuffle it round?" So then I'll message the sculptor or painter and go, "They said it's okay for me to jump ahead."
Yeah.
Like, did they? I'm like, they did. You can check.
Honestly, honestly, I've sent them a box of biscuits. It's fine. Yeah. Everything's okay.
I have done that as well.
I tell you what, biscuits biscuits grease the wheels of industry. That's how it works.
Chocolate for sure as well. Yeah, when I've had people on big projects, I send them little care packages along the way. Thank you.
That's it. Keep them sweet. That's the way to do it.
But yeah, that's the nice side of it. There's nice people like that, and then there's obviously people that are very closed and very much like they see the GW business model and they're kind of like, yes, I'm gonna GW business model. Like, but you're not though. No one's going.
No one is. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Even Warlord Mantic, they're the next sort of step down, but the gap between them and GW is enormous still.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, it's my, and let's be honest, it's probably never going to close to a point where you would copy that same business model.
No, because they've had that head start, they've had the available market, and now they're like, sort of everywhere. So as a small company, it just doesn't make sense to try and do that, sort of dominating thing, because you end up, it's a small industry and you don't end up with many friends then as well, or people, like say in Nottingham, it's awesome because there's always people around to sort of help each other out.
Well, this is the thing.
And I really like that.
If you get to a point where you've upset all the sculptors, you don't have any miniatures left here, kind of thing, and
exactly.
or you've upset all the painters, but it's. So it's
or the other way around. If you're a sculptor or painter,
you upset all your clients. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they go, because there will be people. I've got a few of them now. A few different companies that use me as the Annie test. I probably shouldn't say it, but they'll go, if Annie thinks they're all right, then I'll work with them.
So probably be okay then.
Oh, Annie, what's the story with such and such? It'll be like,
wow.
So,
how long have you got?
Yeah, or like, yes, they're amazing. Yeah. You should do this. So yeah, people do talk amongst all of that, and even amongst, so GW is just in its own. They're entirely insular. They're on their own thing. But yeah, even among like the sort of Warlord Mantic, we're all in Nottingham, and even though they can be quite big, it's still normal people working for them. This is where I just get them all in trouble. They tell all the secrets.
but there's also an element where you're not necessarily stepping on each other's toes either.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, like Warlord are not necessarily making products that would step on Mantic's toes. For example, like one's very much historical based, one's very much sci-fi fantasy based, and obviously like they've worked together for things like the is it Black Seas with the sailing game that turned into Armada. So I think like there is an element of when the number one player is so dominant. Like, I think other people do have to kind of come together and help each other out. Like, there has to be a little bit of you scratch my back kind of thing. Yeah. And you generally find that people are generally pretty. I'm not going to ask you who isn't, but I'm sure there are some that.
Here are the people I don't like.
let me just get my book of grudges out. Hang on a second.
I will occasionally go, such and such made my enemy list today. But yeah, and obviously
one less Christmas card going out this year.
I've done that. I have a Christmas card list, and I assess it every year. Although I haven't sent Christmas cards the last few years, in case anyone watching it, it's like, I'm off the list. I've not had one for 2 years. I've not had one for 2 years. I thought I used to. Generally, people are very helpful. There are obviously a few in there that are not, because they're like, I am the only company. And like, there's enough customers for all of us. Gamers will buy whatever shiny thing. They're not going to just go to one. And then even within the larger companies, if you could have someone who's in charge of a department and is awful, and then they leave and there'll be someone else who's ace. So that's almost like a
you got to revisit it again.
Tip of who's, or people will sort of move around companies as well. But
Yeah.
the big ones, and I think the heads of them, like Warlord Mantic, they all know each other
They all used
because
to
they
work
all
together for
worked at
GW.
GW. Yeah. So
Yeah.
in a sense, even the split off is kind of a bit of that old boys club to some
Yeah.
extent.
A little bit incestuous.
It is. I'm one of the very few people who is in the industry and has not worked for
Yeah.
Games Workshop. It
It's
used to be
interesting.
my dream. It used to be my dream. I'd be like, wow, how cool would it be if I had my own Games Workshop store? And then the amount of people I've spoken to that have worked there, I'm like, yeah, it sounds like hell. And that's... but occasionally I'll think, like, I try and, if you're in sort of a crappy mood, and then you assess what you do have. And it's like, I run a war games company. I live near, I'm in Nottingham.
Yeah.
I'm in the world of Warhammer World. I went to as a kid, and I was like, wow, if I could work here, this would be so cool. This is like the dream.
This is the dream. Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not doing it, and I don't want to. I've actually got something better.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And I'm like, yeah, I've got my own thing. It's almost like I want to go back in time and be like, it works out really cool.
Yeah. I think it's so tough, especially working for yourself and having your own company, to like almost celebrate the wins sometimes. Like you remember all the tough bits. You remember the bad days. You remember the days when you made a mistake, or you spent too much money on something. Like those bits never disappear, but the good stuff, your mind has a weird way of just putting them to the back and just going, oh, don't get too big for your boots, kind of thing. And you're like, don't be patting yourself on the back yet. You've done nothing. Like, you've had a good day. Like, just move on, kind of thing. And it's weird the way we do that to ourselves. You haven't got anybody kind of sitting there to go, do you know how good that was? Like, you've done an amazing job there, kind of thing. It's weird.
So I kind of go, can someone tell me I'm good, please?
Yeah. Just affirmation, please. I need pats on the back. Thanks very much. Yeah.
But then that again with the other companies, some of the companies I'm friends with, I'll ring up and go, "Oh my god, guess what I just did?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, this is really cool. And that I really like those people that are just say
that's cool.
other Annies and yeah, and it's like little favors and stuff. Sometimes like, oh, I've run out of packaging slips or whatever. Can you mail me some? Yeah, no worries. And
that's cool. I like that.
That's really really nice.
So
I do like.
Circling back a little bit, we were talking about the price of metal and things going up, and you doing some stuff in resin, and we chatted a little bit in the background about alternative materials, shall we say? So with the price, I guess with prices, you're always conscious about, like, is there a point where you start to look at other materials? Like is there a point where you go, metal's getting so expensive, I'm better off moving to plastic or something?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Well, I'd like to clarify that this is actually alcohol-free beer, so I am entirely sober.
I'm on the real stuff, but no, but I have only had about I've had two mouthfuls from it, so I won't get too mouthy. It's okay.
Just for the coldness.
Exactly, that's the reason I brought it up. It's been in the back of the fridge for weeks.
So yes, absolutely. Everyone's trying to find this like holy grail material.
Yeah.
So metal is generally the cheapest, although now it's losing that sort of the good thing it's got going. And it's quick. So the way that you spin the metal, you can cast hundreds in a day. If it
cools fast and comes out the mold fast.
Yeah, so you can just keep whacking that out. Resin, again, the cost of the resin isn't that much, but it's the labour that you're paying for. Some people go again, oh, you can get a big bag of it. It's like, it's not. They have to pay the staff.
Yeah.
And all staff aren't created equal. So get yourself a cheap resin caster. But to get an experienced person, it's because it's such a skill. The not just the casting, but the mold making as well.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing. So it's the wages basically that go into that.
Yeah.
Which is why some of the small companies that cast themselves sell so cheap, because they don't value their own time, and that tends to be people that aren't paying their bills with that. It's a hobby, or they've got a partner that sells.
But there's other stuff going on.
Has an income basically. Yeah. So that can be a struggle when people go, well, they're resin only, and you're like,
yeah. They're not interested in making a profit.
So we're looking for that sort of mid ground where you can get the speed of resin sorry, the speed of metal, but it's resin basically.
Mm.
So GW started it a while back. Well, they probably weren't the first, but famously had their fail with.
Yes.
My brain forgot. My brain went straight to Failcast.
I was going to say
Finecast.
Finecast, yeah.
Which was a massive flop, and I'm pretty sure GW, if they were honest, would agree with that.
Yeah.
Because they don't do it anymore. Or they do a bit today, but
well, I think they've still got some resin stuff, but I don't know if it's the same material.
They have resin. Yeah. They have proper resin. I don't know if they still
am I right in thinking it's essentially some kind of resin material that was kind of just used in the same way the old metal molds were? Were they reusing the metal molds with a different material, basically?
It wasn't built for it.
Yes.
So it was kind of like spin cast resin.
Yeah.
Not built for it. So again, it's not so much the issue with that method, but
yes,
it's the way they did it. It was all just a bit crap, and everyone knew that because it wasn't designed for that, and the parts were all wrong. Because I learned that again quite early on. My first models were in resin because there was a resin caster in the same building as me, and then I switched it to metal. And it was like the things that work to go into a resin mold, it's a different thing into metal. So that's why those are out of production now, because they're not as cool, in terms of that sort of thing. That's what I realised. No offense to the sculptor. That was one of the reasons why we then went to single piece as well. But you need to make a model differently sometimes if it's going into resin or metal, and so they kind of just replaced the thing. It was a bit of a disaster. They were all, a lot of them were flashy or had holes and stuff.
Yeah, loads of like sort of blowholes in it, wasn't it? That seemed to be that. Because
didn't
liquid green stuff come out around that time? It was almost the case of this model we've just sold you with loads of holes in. We actually sell this other stuff that'll fill them holes in. Yeah.
So that was a bit of a fail.
Yes.
And obviously now, because they've just got so much money, they're just making everything in plastic anyway.
Yeah.
They've got a resin department, so they do the same old school resin. That's what Forge World is. That's traditional hand poured resin. And because of Warhammer World in Nottingham, I've been there a lot. And every time I'll have a little wander around, like, the Forge World stuff. And annoyingly, they took the prices away. I don't know why they did that, because some of them weren't as horrific as you'd expect. I find it a bit put off, if you might have bought something.
It's like a high-end clothes shop now, where if you have to ask the price, you can't afford it. Like that's snobbery.
Using my business brain and kind of looking at some of the bits and going, oh, that's a lot. So some of them, they'd be quite a high price, but they've got all sorts going on, all these little extra bits, bobs, and like that's going to tear a mold really quick. Silicon's quite expensive. Yeah. That's the silicon to make the mold. And then something like an Eldar thing where it's all smooth and a lot cheaper. I'm like, because it's less of a mold. So you get more out of a mold.
You get more out of it,
hours and so it's really interesting on that sort of way. But they have the traditional resin. And I think still a little bit of that crappy cast. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure they're trying to phase that out, pretend it never happened. I don't think. Oh, yeah, they do. They have a tiny metal bit left because they do the bringing back the old models occasionally.
They do, yes. So I'm assuming they pull out the old dies from or the old sort of metal molds, don't they? And they go, well, we'll get another 100 out of this or something. Let's sell a few of those. Yeah.
So they're the absolute leaders, obviously, because they've been so established. They're massive. They've got the most money, so they can just go sod it. We'll do everything in plastic. Yeah. And they have the plastic here in Nottingham as well.
Of course.
So that's the dream. But nobody's got that. Nobody else has got that money. Not even the bigger boys. They will for a few kits, but they can't have everything in plastic. So the setup cost for plastic is a lot. It's generally about 40 grand to get a tool to do one sprue.
Yeah.
The tooling and sculpting. It depends where you go, but that's the sort of rough. Some people go, I'll do this in plastic, so let them buy it. A money machine.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I have got plans to go into plastic at some point. Partly as vanity.
Yeah.
because it kind of marks you.
I like that. Yeah.
It marks you as one of the big boys if you've got a plastic kit.
Well, I guess what it shows is you're selling enough that it starts to make financial sense.
But it's
So
also scary how much you need to sell.
yeah, I can imagine.
So,
Yeah, the thing
so I
always
have to be a bit more confident.
yeah, the thing that always surprises me as well is like I've worked in engineering in the past, and like if you buy a part for like, let's say like your cooker at home breaks down and you buy a part for it and it's a few £100, you suddenly buy a part for a machine in like a factory and they're talking like £20,000 for something, and you're going, I'm sure I could just buy one of them. Like, you know, look at these on eBay kind of thing. Like, like there's something that happens when you start talking like engineering prices. Like tolerances are really important, and things just get expensive really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can imagine.
So one of the things that people do is go to China.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to China. It's not on the plan. I'm sure at some point I'll sell out and erase all of these interviews where I go, we will always be made in the UK.
Can you just chop that 5-minute segment out?
Yeah. We will use China. But yeah, obviously there's the dodgy business practices associated with a lot of those sort of factories, in terms of your IP for one, and some of the working conditions not being great. Which I find people do turn a bit of a blind eye to. And I'll see some things where people will really kick off. A while ago, there was a boycott Kickstarter because they'd said they were. I can't remember the full thing. It was something about them being anti-union.
Oh, I remember. I don't remember the details, but I remember that. Yeah.
And it was around the time that I was not long to do a Kickstarter, and I was like, oh, great. So everyone boycotted whatever. A lot of people were very vocal about boycotting Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And it was frustrating because it's like, you're not hurting Kickstarter, you're hurting the people that need to use Kickstarter. It's very noble doing this, but also those board games you're buying from Kickstarter are made in China where there's definitely no unions.
You can't start to pick and choose which bits of the process you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that whole whataboutism, but there's an element of that, like, so that's okay, but that isn't. So the place we get our resin and metal made is in Birmingham, and they pay living wage, and they're one of the first living wage companies. So that's great. And it's another thing where I'm like, this is why I'm poor, because we're paying living wage. It's like I'm doing all of the good things.
I was going to say,
and then I'm like, where's my money? So there's a part of like, oh yeah, these people that are using underpaid people or cutting corners are winning, and it's hard because you're like, but I'm doing the right thing, and I know long term, and also just in my brain, I don't want to make a company that harms anyone. No. And I want to try and prove that you can just not be a dickhead, but still a degree of success.
But like that is a huge selling point that often gets missed from things. Like, I think you can almost, there's some things you take for granted because of your own personal kind of like beliefs and like your kind of morals and things that you just take for granted. That is actually like, it is a real selling point. And like people will pay a little bit more knowing that they've come from a, almost like sustainable sources, if you like, almost like that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's probably the thing I should mention more.
You have to go and print. You have to print all your packaging again now, though. Then it goes out the window. But I think it's important.
Put made in Britain on my packaging before Brexit, and I thought I'm glad I didn't. Give me a selling point anymore. I'll get the bill from the casters, and I'll be like, it's obviously the biggest expense at the moment. Well, casters and sculptors, to be fair. But I'll get that and go, oh, and they go, that's what you get. That's what you get. Like, damn it. I'm like, can't you just, work them a little bit harder?
Come on, some mates rates. Come on, like.
I'm like, do you have to live in wage? Scare him a little bit. But no, it is worth it, and I like not having that. Again, I'll jinx it, and this is something that will haunt me. No skeletons in my closet.
No,
that's what I want to create. I want it all to be positive and good, and I just know that it's going to take longer, but it will be way worth it. So going back to materials, so everyone's trying to find this, like, right, so plastic's out, or it's cheap plastic. And again, plastic's not all made equal.
No.
the technology as well. So like the figures that GW are making are just obscenely good, and that engineering it blows my mind. Like no one else is doing that.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. They're just so good. So like that's out. So people are kind of messing about with board games material.
Yeah, like PVCs and things.
Yeah, there's a lot of those different types sort of kicking about, and some are better than others. Some people have had more success than others.
Yeah.
I don't want to use it myself, but I'm not against it.
If the quality gets to a point where it, then it's bang on, then yeah, maybe.
I just don't see it because that's not what it's for. There's like some things are good. If you're getting something like Reaper Bones, you're buying it because it's cheap. Like the models are good, but the reason you're buying bones and not metal, unless it's the big monsters, because that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
But if you want to buy a bucket of monsters for your D&D that you don't really care about,
bag full of skeletons kind of thing.
Yeah, then that's perfect. You don't want to pay, high end for that you might only use once or whatever. I've always pitched us as a premium product. It's like we're going for quality in a world where everyone's just going for cheap. Like quality is what I want to go for, and it's still not like bank breaking at all, but that little difference.
Yeah, there isn't an element though. Wait, like to stand out, you have to stand for something, and if you stand for cheap, there'll be somebody else that'll stand for cheaper.
There's always someone cheaper.
Where quality, quality speaks for itself, and ethics speak for themselves. I think as long as you tell people about it.
Yeah, no, I'm just like secretly ethical.
Yeah, it's like I do a lot of work for charity. Don't like to talk about it.
Yeah, it is so. Also, I spent loads of money on like eco packaging. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
It's fully biodegradable.
Yeah.
And again, I'll be buying it going, the thing next to it's like twice as big and made of plastic.
This is the difference. If you were a big company with loads of staff, it would be somebody's job to sell all of those plus points. Like you'd have you'd have an environmental advisor who'd be telling the world about all the good stuff you do.
Yeah, exactly. Here at Squiddo. So yeah, there's an in between sort of various levels of that sort of board game product, and some of it's seeping into war games quite heavily. I guess a lot of it being promoted.
I guess a lot of it come in through things like Kickstarter as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like people who maybe hadn't produced miniatures in big scale in the past, or suddenly got the opportunity to produce them in scale because they had a successful Kickstarter.
Yeah.
They've gone off
and
down
doing
that. Yeah.
That volume in resin takes a long time, as well as the man and woman hours.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah,
the person hours, yeah.
Yeah, and there's women that work at our casters, so that.
What? Women working? How you said you were ethical?
So what am I on?
Yes.
So yeah, the people trying to fill that kind of void of in between where they can't quite, budget. It's not even budget. It's like if you want to sell things really cheap, it might still. I don't know. To be honest, I'm really uncertain as to the purpose of some of this in betweeny.
Yeah.
But so one that's been going around quite a lot. I'm sure they're going to come for me at some point. I wasn't saying anything, and then I did once, and now I'm kind of like the anti-spokesperson. What am I doing? What am I saying? So there's one going around a lot, and they've got a very heavy marketing team. And the advertising I found quite offensive, because it's almost like out of a parody. So they'll go, the messages, so I get the business messages for some reason, and I get the advertising messages. Like to companies and to punters. Yeah. And it'll be like, ew, look at this metal model. And it's all like pitted and deformed and like a recast or something. And they'll go, then look at this resin model. And I don't know, someone stood on it or something. And they're like, ooh, aren't these horrible? But what you should get is our product.
Yeah.
COcast. I can't not say it. But it's so it goes like, yeah, your stuff sucks, but by using like the worst possible and then showing off their best possible. I understand
Yeah.
it's marketing.
It
But I'm
is.
kind of like, oi, let's take offense to that. Our stuff doesn't look like that crap.
Yeah. Here's something we
the
dug up from
latest...
1965. We found it in the garden.
Yeah.
Somebody put it in a biscuit tin and buried it like a capsule. Yeah, it's been there for a while.
And the latest one is like, don't you want your staff to not be sick? What?
Yeah.
Like, our stuff doesn't make you sick.
My
Like,
God.
our stuff doesn't make you sick. You've obviously got to use like protective equipment, which some people don't. Ours obviously do.
Do you know what it is? Though? That is a really clever marketing thing because they're not saying that your stuff makes people sick.
No.
They're just saying, do you want your staff to be sick? Do you want them to come and use our healthy stuff? Our healthy
That's
stuff.
why that meme I posted the other day was so apt. I think it's Larson comic.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a bunch of cereals, and then there's one that's cereal asbestos free. It's like that marketing guy. And yeah, I'm like, hang on. So yeah, you are indirectly, but without getting yourself into trouble, saying that everyone else's stuff is crap. And that's when I tend to get angry at people, when there's sort of like statements that will harm, or the goal is to harm other companies, basically, by pushing themselves ahead.
Yeah, it's basically just put a bit of scaremongering out there, isn't it? Basically saying, you know,
I've seen a few companies over, for some reason it was over June, that were advertising, and they were using stuff like, other people are putting prices up because they want more money and they're scum. But we are actually putting our prices down. And everyone's like, yes, you care about people. They're like, no, you just have enough of a leeway.
Yeah. Your margins were huge in the past. Yeah, that's what it was.
Because that was going back to pricing. That's another point as well. Like, the bigger company, I have to be able to sell my product to a distributor.
Yeah.
Which tends to be, I can't tell my exact, but on a rough standard scale for selling to distribution in war games, it's around the 50% mark.
Yeah.
So the VAT has to come off that, and then 50%, and you've still got to make money. So it's obviously the same with Games Workshop as well. People go, oh, so if you're only selling direct again, you don't have that cost.
I think it's something like I've worked in like sort of my last job was in product development for like a company that made products for like supermarkets and stuff. And I think people forget the bit that, like, you know, you've got distribution costs in there, you've got warehousing costs in there. You then basically got like kind of like retailers like to make a margin as well. Like even when you look at like GW stuff as an example, like nearly everybody sells 20% discount. Like that discount isn't like, that's not goodwill so much. That's just that's just competing against all the other retailers that are giving 20% discount as well. So that becomes the price, doesn't it? But they're still making a profit, or they wouldn't sell it.
I know GW have a different they have a bit of a sliding scale because they put you in different rankings.
Yeah, depending on how big your business is, you get a bigger discount. Yeah.
But the general standard, again, it varies across companies and stuff. The general standard for I'm really whistleblowing today. In this industry, it's about 35% off from manufacturer to shop. And I'll see shops, and it was hard in the start when I was doing a lot more retail, whereas now I'm just bad Squiddo. You know, I was stocking other people's things at the start, and it was really difficult seeing people do 20. Sometimes it was 25% off.
Yeah.
And they're like, I know for a fact you're only getting it at 35% off. So, and you're not selling enough. Whereas it only works for those massive companies, which I won't like naming people, but that's a joke. They're gonna come for me. They are gonna come for me. But you know, those sort of tactics work in large scale. Say like Tesco, and you know, when people do like Prime Day, Black Friday, because they sell so many.
Yeah.
But the market's not as big. Like in some cases, like the market's way bigger than you think, but also isn't when there are so many people selling, and it's usually the bigger stuff. Say like Games Workshop at 20% off. And you'll have your big guys that do shift enough to make it work. And then all the people that set up, they go, oh, I've got to do 20% off.
Yeah, because why would anybody ever come shop here otherwise? Yeah. So
they pop up, dominate for a bit. And it used to make me really angry because I feel like they're not even taking money, they're throwing money in the bin because nobody's getting the money.
Yeah.
So they'd be there going, well, I'll do 22% off. And they're not making money, and the other shop that was previously selling it aren't making any money. And yeah, when I popped up, I only had like 1 or 2 sculpts in the range. So I was a retailer of female miniatures. So I used to pick them from all over the place and sell them like that. And people would say, I'd see in the comments, and again, it's like, I don't think you realise that I can see this. And I'd be like, oh, I love going on Bad Squiddo's website because I browse there, and then I go find the discount places to buy it. And I was like, cool. But as it built up, what was really nice. So I sell the plastic. I still do a little bit of retail as well as my stuff.
Yeah.
So I sell the plastic box sets because I just love plastic box sets. So say like the Frostgrave and stuff, Frostgrave, Oathmark, Fireforge, because they're great. And some of those have crossovers with my sculptors as well. So again, it's like, this was sculpted by the person who did this. Isn't this cool? And yeah, they're all RRP, and the amount of people who buy them at RRP is really impressive. I remember another retailer. I used to, so when Frostgrave first came out, I was one of the biggest people selling it. Yeah. Whilst being really small. Yeah. And I had other larger retailers going, what are you doing? Like, what discount are you doing? And like, I'm not. I'm just offering a really good service. Because once you start, that's it. You're done. So unless you're already established, it's that race to the bottom. Companies pop up. They appear to sell loads of stuff, and then they eventually go to do their taxes and bills and stuff and go, oh shit, and collapse. And then another one appears, and it's like, everyone's like, oh yeah, it's like, it's just not.
It's funny what you say though as well. Like service is something that like people sort of almost without thinking about it will pay for good service, because there are cheap companies where you will wait 3 months to get your stuff for the sake of saving £2 or £3 on a discount or something like that, but you don't get it very fast. And then there's companies where you get it like the same week kind of thing, or within a couple of days, because they send stuff out. Yeah, well, there you go. Unless I'm ill. Yeah. Or it's hot. but like there does come a point where you go, I'm saving £2 here. I know I always get it from that company. Like it comes the next day or whatever, or it comes the day after. So I'm just gonna not even hassle. I'm not gonna worry for a couple of quid. Like it costs me more to have to get in the car and drive to the post office when I'm not in, because I expected it 2 to 3 days ago and now I'm at work kind of thing. It's all those kind of things. So good service is worth its weight in gold. But it's funny when you're saying about discount and stuff. Like obviously, like I said before, some of my kind of backgrounds in like supermarkets and things, like sort of supplying supermarkets. And what people don't realize, if something's on offer in a supermarket, the supermarket are not reducing their prices. They've basically gone back to the supplier and said, we want to put this on promotion. You need to drop your price. We want a promotion from you. And when you're a big so when you're a big supermarket like Tesco, like you just go, you either do it or your competitor will do it. Like so there's all this stuff goes on in the background where basically it's a case of, we're going to put your stuff on our shelves. We expect 3 promotions a year. Like we want you to pay for marketing. If you want to be on the end of the aisle, so you always see it when you walk past, you pay more. They call them gate fees, basically, and that's like how much you pay to get them on the shelf before you've even sold anything. And it's a case of like we're so big, we'll just tell you what we want you to do, kind of thing. So it looks like Tesco's great, and they're discounting this thing, and yet there's some guy like sort of sitting in his shed making jars of chutney or something like that, like panicking, like oh no, like absolutely panicking, like we're going to drop our prices. Would they want to put them on offer this weekend? Otherwise, we're going to lose our place. So there's all sorts of things go on in the background in retail and stuff that people never ever get to see.
I'm glad that from the start I didn't bother with the discount, because I think it would have because you can't really stop either. Once you start, you can't suddenly go, oh, now we're full price.
It's funny because
but on the other hand, I don't neg on anyone who does that.
Of course.
And a lot of our retailers sell things at discount. So when people go, like, we'll have a look at the retailers. Yeah.
There's a thing I read.
There's a few of them around.
Oh, of course. There's a thing I read years ago, and it was about theme parks in the UK. And what it said was Flamingo Land in Yorkshire never ever discount their tickets. So you'll never get a discounted ticket to go to Flamingo Land. It's always full price. Whenever they're open, it's always full price. But Alton Towers always have 2 for 1 on Cadbury's chocolates, and by the Sun, it's £8 tickets, and all of this kind of stuff. And they said that basically what happened was, Alton Towers found they could never ever sell tickets at full price. If they stopped doing any kind of promotions, people just went, I'm not paying that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But people would just keep going to kind of Flamingo Land, for example, and it's all about this kind of this. I know it's all about this race to the bottom, basically. Like somebody will always undercut you if everybody just starts kind of, well, I'm going to give 10%, well, I'm going to give 15%, well, I'm going to give to the point where actually, like even people now, when it comes to GW products, people will go, how much is that? That's £100 for that model. Oh, I get 20% off, so it's only 80 really. Like, so people are already that is now the price. People have factored that in now. Like, so whenever you say, well, I think that's really expensive. Oh, well, I get discount, so it's fine.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's built into their pricing strategy as well. It's built into the GW's prices because they know it's going to get discounted later down. It's pushing them to try and sell more through their own stores at full price because they get more of that profit coming back. It baffles me that something that is so in demand or is so popular always has so much discount on it. It just doesn't make sense. Like, the sort of standard. But a lot of those, pretty much all the shops that will sell a variety of wargame stuff, I totally get that they pretty much have to discount or die. But it's how far you do it. So a lot of them will do, they'll go, okay, we'll do 10%, but can we make some money, please?
Absolutely.
There's I totally get that a lot of shops, they're kind of forced to. And if they're bricks and mortar as well, I think it extra sucks because people can pop up. They can pretty much pop up, list stuff from the distributors on their website, order it in when they get some orders. They have pretty much no running costs. And then the poor bricks and mortar shops have got to pay their rent, they've got to hold stock and all this, and it's so hard for them.
All the
and
business
occasionally when I
rates and
see
everything,
that, I see that online and people will go, well, boo-hoo, let's, like, come on, this is part of our community. We want it. I'm definitely not saying don't buy from someone if they discount. But don't necessarily look for the best discount either.
Yeah,
like, there'll be an in-between. There'll be someone who's wicked, and then they do a bit of discount. That's obviously a bonus, because everyone needs skin.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm sure if you want to get my stuff and you're like, bloody hell, I'm not paying that, there's probably a bunch of shops that sell it for like 10-15% off. So go to them. I love the retail part of it. That's another one where there's plenty of people my sort of size or smaller like, no, we'll only do direct only. I'm like, well, then you will never get out of that bubble.
No.
And so like having the retailers, they get stock in, they go, hey, we've got all this cool stock from Bad Squiddo, and then that causes a little like bubble, and then someone else will just wander in a shop and go, oh, this is cool. And I learned when I was doing, when I started off, I was heavily retail, and it'd be weird. And I'm hoping that I've learned. I saw my Lancer in the chat earlier. I don't know if they're still there.
No, I think they left earlier on.
Hopefully they'll agree, because they're one of my retailers.
Yeah.
But hopefully I've kind of picked up what was good and what wasn't good. So some of the retailers, I'd get something in stock, and then if I was at a show or something, they'd go, Bad Squiddo will be at the show, they'll be carrying our stuff. And I'm like, thank you. And others, it was kind of like the dirty sell to you. Like have our stock and we don't want to know you. And it's almost like, we'll sell to you because we get some money, but we're now worried that you're a competitor. I'm like, that's not the way to do it.
It's weird, isn't it?
Like, okay, there might be a few people that now might buy here, but in general, you're getting more custom. And so many of them I did find were quite hostile. So I'm trying to get more retailers, get it more out there, more accessible. And then when they do appear, I'm like, look, it's like some will sell to retail and then go, don't buy off the retailers. Like, no, like, I don't care where you buy it from. Buy it from me, buy it from the shops, buy it from somewhere. Wherever you've bought it from, I'll get some of the money.
You have to think about it as in the same way that you don't sit and sculpt everything yourself and then spin cast it yourself and then literally go and get in the car and drive it to somebody's house. Like you have people who do other stuff for you, and those distributors and those retailers are part of that chain of, like you say, getting your name out there as well. The more shops your stuff's hanging up in with those lovely packaged boxes,
Very
rather than little clear bags, like kind of like looks like a market stall kind of thing. There's some really nice comments in the chat as well here.
Hey.
Loco is saying, I bought most of my FG from Annie precisely because I wanted to support a decent small business. Prawn Toucher saying, yeah, it's so true. Much more likely to pay a bit more from a company I trust, like Bad Squiddo or North Star, than any of these discount sellers I don't know who pop up online. Silver MKI saying, service is really important. Currently almost 9 months late on an order from a company I love and had good service from previously, so I can grit my teeth and wait. Certainly wouldn't have done it for others. Yeah, exactly. Captain F. Castle is saying, United buses used to run a day trip to Flamingo Land from Durham bus station for about £6, including entry or to go back to school holidays in the 80s. Yes. My school
so
trips,
easily swayed that I'm looking up Flamingo Land afterwards.
that's it.
I want to go to Flamingo Land.
Yeah. And Paul Inman, hello Paul, by the way, he says, I think GW have something in their terms and conditions for trade accounts. You must have bricks and mortar property. I think GW do, mate. They basically they won't supply sort of non bricks and mortar companies, but I think a lot of the smaller ones are generally just like, if somebody's going to sell our stuff, they might not be happy about it, but they're just trying to get stuff sold, I suppose.
I know there's a lot of loophole with Games Workshop. I don't know what it's currently like, but your bricks and mortar can be a chip shop. You can.
Do you know what you see a lot? You see a lot of there's a sweet shop near me sells Games Workshop stuff, and I'm sure it's just because the guy that works there just like, I'll get discount, I'll get it cheap.
Yeah,
I think he's just doing it for himself.
Just the basic rack, and then you've got that.
Yeah.
You could have a bigger online store. I can't remember who it was. Well, even if I could remember, I couldn't say. But it was someone that worked in the trade at some point. Just said the amount of vape shops
that they've got one pot of Agrax Earthshield on a shelf somewhere. Somebody's been vaping it for the last 3 years. It's lovely.
But I know their sales team is very, very heavy.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know what it's currently like at the moment. But yeah, as much as it's like we want to control it, it's also, if a vape shop's buying it, it's still money.
Yeah, but they're quite. I think they're quite pushy on things like point of sale and stuff as well, aren't they? And like you want to buy the paints, you have to buy the racks, and if you buy the rack, you have to fill the rack, and all those kind of things.
They're definitely up there. So with like let's say with the proper companies, but they are, and they obviously are. They and one of the things that agitates me is that people do very easily forget that they are a massive company.
Oh, huge.
And everything they do is for money. And it may so happen that a thing they do is cool. So it might be, say, making more female miniatures. That's not the good of their heart, because if they knew it wouldn't make, if they had a feeling, or like, from their tests or whatever, that wouldn't make more money, they wouldn't do it. Yeah. So it's almost like reactive to the world. Yeah. So the world is saying, okay, we'd like some more female miniatures. So they go, okay, we will do that. And there are brilliant people. I'm always conflicted because GW as an entity is evil. Because it's a PLC. No matter what they did, the nature of PLC companies is evil.
It's to make more profit this year than they did last year. That's their kind of guiding light, if you like. Yeah. But you are right. They are full of people who are really passionate about what they do. People who are like sort of, it's been their dream to work at Games Workshop because they grew up with it and they love it. And it's it's the pinnacle of, if you're a sculptor or a painter, maybe that might be the pinnacle of what you want to kind of achieve kind of thing at this point. And we do sometimes kind of forget that. Yeah. That there is GW PLC and then there is GW staff, the people. Like and
you're like, oh, that guy's wicked. Or like, oh, they are doing some really cool stuff, but that wouldn't get approved. Yeah. If it was deemed to not be good for the shareholders.
Oh, absolutely,
and therefore cash.
Absolutely.
So what was I going to say? Yeah, so the last few years with like the social media, you've got the Warcom team on social media. It's really accessible. So again, it's very smart because you don't think the random guys in suits and people will go, well, I'm a shareholder. Like, you have like a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of a few shares. Those people at the top don't care about Games Workshop. This is it. Like man in suits thing. I've gone, this is good for our stocks. We'll invest in this one.
100%. I think we had this. It was either last week or the week before when we were talking about this, where basically like Games Workshop started as a company full of people who were really passionate and wanted to sell of like sort of sell D&D and sell miniatures and all that kind of stuff. And then as it grew, then people would come in to do the important jobs. Like the CEO isn't some guy who like sits at weekend and paints armies kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's a guy that runs big businesses. You get people who leave like Hasbro and come to work at Games Workshop because they've worked in the toy industry, like their chief executives and marketing sort of directors and stuff, who understand how to squeeze every last penny out of the product they sell. But the people creating the stuff, like, one, they're not making mega bucks, and two, they really are passionate and they're doing stuff because they love it. They're creative people that work
and that's
in
the ground level that you see, and you're like, I want to support them.
Exactly.
But it's not, they're getting their small wage, and then the rest's going up to some mega yacht or something at the top.
Mega yacht.
I think definitely having that. That walk-on presence. So you see those people on Twitter and they're wicked, and you paint some, well, not me because they don't, you paint your Space Marine and they go, wow, that's great. And then if you're really lucky, they might put it in the magazine bit online, and you're like, wow, this is like a really lovely little community. But that's like, it's almost like the anglerfish. Is it the anglerfish?
Yeah.
Yeah, that there's kind of like the big monster behind it, almost with that like
nice little shiny
a
light.
With a hand puppet. It's like, oh, we're lovely, and those people are lovely.
Oh.
So when it's people sort of directly compare, and I'm like, there's a lot different.
There's loads you don't see. Yeah.
I wanted to touch on your recent video. There's yours and Discourse.
Yes.
And then I watched half of the interview with with Discourse, and then I realised that was before both of your videos.
Yes.
So I was like, you've had the chat, and then you've both gone, I'm going to make another video about it.
So she said, actually, after we'd finished the live stream, the two of us were just sitting chatting, kind of having a drink and just kind of having a conversation, chatting YouTube and the world, like all that kind of stuff. And she went, it's funny we got in that conversation because I've just made a video about this, and we were chatting, and I said, I think after our chat, there's something in it. I feel like there's something in it for me here as well, because I've been in a bit of a slump. I couldn't really, I was right in a kind of in the doldrums a bit, and it was like, I think there's something here as well. So then I'd gone off that night. Actually, oh no, was it that night? It might have been that night. I went and got my laptop and started like writing out like proper like all the things I wanted to say, and then I read it back the next day and went, no, you can't say that. Let me just re-edit this one and write another one. So it took me about 3 days to make the video by the time I'd rewritten it and everything else. And it was one of them things where you just think, actually, like, I think this is just something I need to get off my chest kind of thing, and then I can move on and get back to making videos again. Yeah, that's not how it panned out. Like people saw it, believe it or not, and I got feedback, which I was not expecting.
I was aware of Discourse, but I'd never watched any of her stuff.
Yeah.
I met her at Expo, and she was wicked. I was kind of like, I should probably watch some war game videos at some point, because I don't watch many.
Yeah.
Because I end up just I have trash on a lot of the time, because I have things on in the background when I'm working.
Yeah.
And it would just be those like commentary channels on this guy on TikTok's a massive sexist or something, and I'll just listen to that. Also, because obviously a lot of it's Warhammer content, and I'm not mega in the Warhammer world, so I'm not that interested. But I hadn't heard of your channel, though I was aware of you. Ooh. And then they both came up on my feed almost at the same sort of time.
Yeah.
And I saw them because I saw people being really nasty on Twitter. And I normally kind of go with it, because I'll occasionally go look through and be like, who's banned, who's cancelled now?
Yeah.
Because I've got a few people that are like keep me up to date with the Twitter shenanigans.
Yeah. Let me know who I'm not supposed to talk to anymore.
Yeah,
just keep me right.
I get PMs and it's like, how dare you be following this person? They're a Nazi. I'm like, what? I didn't know. I don't look at the feed, and I don't look at the feed a lot. I look at my @, because being all big and famous, obviously get a lot of. So I kind of just look at the mentions, because I follow so many people on there as well. I very rarely browse it. And I'd be like, well, it's hard for you to have missed this drama. I'm like, I don't follow them. And someone was tweeted like,
I went and made a cup of coffee. I'm sorry, I turned my back.
Yeah, it's like, how dare Bad Squiddo be following this account? That seems sus. And I'm like, woo, no, woo. So I saw a bunch of people being mean about you two. I'm like, oh, are these bad now? So, and then I saw a few people going, oh, and they've collaborated. Oh, it makes sense. So
But
like, oh,
that was dead funny. I got loads of comments like, oh, I saw you'd done that video with her. I'm not surprised, the two of you. And it's like, my God, yeah. So
I went, okay, I'll watch them. And I really liked. I watched Discourse first, and then I watched through a bunch of her videos, and then I was kind of like, am I missing something? Because I think as I'd found it, I'd then tweeted like, oh, listening to Discourse, I really like this. I thought, and then I saw more people going, done with. Someone said, oh, she's the God, I've blocked the name from my mind because she's that awful. The Katie Hopkins of the whole. I'm like, come on. And I was like, is there something that I have missed? Have I just publicly announced my support? Like, oh, I love watching this. And I'm like, oh no, what have I missed? So I was watching a few more. And I went, no, I get the titles are clickbaity and that sort of thing.
But that's part of the game a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, but the videos were really, and there was a lot of the ones I've watched where I've gone, yes, this is well thought out, and eloquent. And then then I watched yours again because it was like, oh, here he goes again, the clickbait guy. So I watched it, and again I was like, yes, this is really interesting. It's not like rage because it was like, oh, these two, they're making videos and they hate the hobby. I'm like,
I don't.
No, but it ties into the whole, and I think it was in your the stream you did together as well, where they have got such a grapple on social media now that if you say anything that is a bit negative, and obviously I don't because all my social media is bad Squiddo, so there's no point.
No, that's it.
Why would I as another company?
Yeah, I was going to say you're a company, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I do have to be careful. And it's always that trying to be
especially when they all live in your street.
Because I will see other companies that basically just slag off Games Workshop, and all it looks is just bitter.
Yeah,
they'll be like, "Well, our stuff's better." I'm like, "There's no point." So I won't do it personally, but I'll see, like yourselves will just go, maybe this action here. And I think it was your video where you said about like, oh, I wear Nike shoes, but I'm not like a Nike stan. Depending all directions, you'll be like, yeah, they are a bit crappy. The shoes. So,
it's a funny one because I think there's definitely a link between people feel the need to defend GW, because it's like, because even if you're not being negative, because there's a very big difference between negativity and criticism or constructive criticism or opinions. And I wouldn't say I was being negative about GW. I had some thoughts basically where I thought, because they are so big, like I wasn't saying this evil person is going to come down my house and turn my electric off kind of thing. It's like, it's a case of like, because they are so big, they have a hold over the industry and they can influence what we get to see by taking over stores and having lots of products on the shelves, by releasing like waves and waves of stuff on a weekly basis, by sending lots of product out so that lots of channels talk about it, which then influences the way the algorithm works and it blocks out other stuff. And it's like it's quite difficult to not be mainstream, to be anything but. And that was all the point I was trying to make.
It's really good to see people saying that, because that's the daily struggle.
Yeah.
Again, I don't have an advertising team, so I release something I've put all this effort into, and I kind of like throw it out onto the internet, and it's just drowned immediately.
Yeah.
So if I had, and that's the frustration, that the next bit of growth is that I just need more people to know about that we exist.
It's interesting because I've had a few emails and conversations from people at other companies who've emailed me since the video went out and have been quite supportive and said like, oh, like I saw your video, sort of completely agree with what you said kind of thing. Like we can plow like our marketing budget into a new release. We can literally set everything up, we can afford to send a few boxes out to a few people for them to look at it. We gear it up, we're doing our Facebook post and all this kind of stuff, and we get ready to go, and we think we've really nailed it this time. We've spent a bit more money than we normally do on marketing. We've put it out there, and then Games Workshop got a new pot of paint out this week, and it wipes away like 6 months worth of work kind of thing. It's just gone, and it's like
my perfect analogy is an early, I think it's an early Simpsons episode, where Lisa designs the new Malibu Stacy, Lisa Lionheart. That's my story. That episode is my story. And yeah, it was the like, you know, all that effort, released it, and then it's like Malibu Stacy with a new hat. And when I've been building up to big releases, and I'm always like, someone else better not.
Yeah. Absolutely, isn't it?
And at the very end, it's amazing. There's one little girl that picks the doll up, and Lisa says, if we just got through to that one little girl, it was all worth it. And the woman that is like the Malibu Stacy founder mumbles something like, yeah, and they're like 500 grand, but never mind. Like, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think talking about that stuff, it isn't necessarily negative. It's just it exists.
That's it. It's not like I'm saying anything about like all of their product is horrible. It's a complete waste of money. It's overpriced. The staff are awful. Like the companies.
But that's what I saw you and Discourse basically called as. And that's why I was confused.
And I think
one that I will say publicly I don't like is Spiky Bits. Oh. And the comparison, and like, yeah, that seems like a guy who really doesn't like the hobby.
Well,
and makes money off being like, saying stuff that's not been verified, causing stirs and that sort of thing.
Well,
but the only thing I could find with you guys was like, just clickbait titles and stuff. And I am quite an avid YouTube watcher, say outside of war games, and everyone, you have to do it, and it's known that you have to do it as long as the content's good. It's not like you get there and then it's crap.
It's kind
you have to play the game, and I really appreciate that. So
I generally don't go down the kind of like really heavy clickbait route, but for that video, there was a point I was trying to make.
And it worked.
And it worked. It's done like 40,000 views now. Yeah, and I'm still getting messages on a daily basis. But it was like,
have you had any really horrible ones directly?
I've had a few that basically YouTube basically blocks out. It basically there's a filter on there where it'll hide the worst of the worst comments kind of thing. And there's some that go in there, and I think, you know what it is, I'm not going to hide it as long as it's not a personal attack kind of thing. If you don't like my opinion, you don't like my opinion. But if you start saying things about me or that kind of stuff about me personally, then they just kind of get deleted and blocked. It like so. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's been some quite horrendous things come through. I generally kind of have to I keep having to try and tell myself it's not personal. They don't really know me. They haven't really watched the video.
They haven't watched the video. Yeah, no, exactly.
Like a lot of the stuff on Twitter, especially, was like there was like people saying like, I'm not watching this clickbait shit. Somebody tell me what it's about. And it's like, okay, so you want to know what it's about. You're really intrigued. You want to know, but you're sticking to your guns and you're refusing to watch it. But yeah, so it was a strange experience to go through, because I generally don't make videos that really push people's buttons and poke the bear a bit. And I did, to be fair, I didn't think I had there either. I thought I was just kind of saying something that I thought, but people.
Sounds like it's not that controversial, is it?
Well, it's not. Well, I didn't think it was controversial to say Games Workshop are pretty big, and they have quite a grip on the market. I didn't think that was controversial, but so be it.
I'm generally, other and Andy, my housemate, watching it will probably be disagreeing. I'm generally a positive person, so all this sort of stuff, I don't like moaning. So because one of my own rules with myself is kind of like, if you can't moan about something, you've got to do something about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you're allowed to say the thing, but you have to then do something or shut up. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
So rather than just whining, which in the past I've been very guilty of. So it's stuff where it's like, okay, these are the facts, and then so instead of me just ignoring it, I can say the same sort of thing. So like, this is what it's like. You're drowning online, but if I'm just there constantly going, oh, I'm drowning online. So you got to do something about it.
Yes.
So I did like what Discourse was saying. Like, you can get around it. You've just got to. And I like businessing. It's all entirely self-taught. I did end up at the start. I did kind of start a business by accident because I didn't think it was going to last, and then had to learn everything as I went along. And now I'm like, oh, businessing, and I like the challenge.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like that's how it is. So then it's like, how can we play that game? How can we get into the game?
Yeah.
So yeah, if it's say for example it's too late now, but if it's like contrast paints are out, everyone's searching contrast paints. It's like contrast paints on Bad Squiddo and stuff like that, where you can at least go, this is how it is. So we're now gonna play that game to get things sort of seen.
And that's it.
Why again, like you have a YouTube video. One of the guilty pleasures that I my YouTube video is trash. So there's a whole genre of family vloggers, and I loathe it. It's the most inane stuff ever. But I watch commentary on the family vloggers, and I've watched that much commentary that I know too much about the family vloggers. And like, does this make me as bad? But it's a lot. It started off watching it because it was that whole. It was the discussion of like people putting their entire lives online in that sense and putting their kids online without their consent, and it was a really good sort of chat. And then I'll end up watching someone just critiquing the curtains or something, like, oh god, this is almost like the celebrity thing. But watching that, and there's been a few of those that have recently quit, and then the people that I don't watch stuff, I watch commentary of stuff. So it's usually just some guy in the corner going, "You what?" There's been a few of those where they've quit, and they're all really cringy. They're all like the families where they always wear white and all their furniture's white, and they'll make videos where like they'll go to Starbucks. Today we're going to Starbucks. Now we're gonna go in the pool, and I'm like, who's watching this? This is so inane. It's always that like, our lives are perfect and amazing, yay! And some of those have stopped, and they were talking about how doing that even is just like, it's just draining. They're like, if we did a video that was like, today we went to the dentist. It's like no one's gonna the zoo. The zoo's probably our trip to the zoo, and a nice picture of the family. But if you put a picture of a lion's face, and then like nearly had to go to A&E or something, like that.
Exactly, that's it.
And that's gonna get the views. And they were saying about how that was because people want to watch something exciting and nothing exciting is happening. Then they have to kind of make it up. And it is different because their content is absolutely terrible. But it's still anyone basically creating content on YouTube has to play that game. And I appreciate that on its own, like, how far do you, not sell out, but remove yourself from what you want to do. And some of the other fairly big YouTubers for gaming stuff have said that. They're like, I've done tests. I've done one. You're like, painting up my new thing, or I don't know. Is the new thing a piece of crap? It's just the same video. And it's like, well, you put effort in. You want people to see it.
It's essentially your title and your thumbnail is basically like your packaging on shelf. You're like it doesn't matter what your food tastes like if nobody ever buys it, kind of thing. And it doesn't matter how good or bad your videos are if nobody ever clicks to watch them, kind of thing. So it's a real, and like there's so much content available that you have to try and fight through that. So that aside, everybody has to do that no matter what your content's about. But then if you are actively not getting shown to people because you're not talking about the flavour of the month, then that's difficult. And that's where my frustrations lie, was like, let people see and make their own mind up, kind of thing. Like because it might be that it's something they want. They might be looking for alternative stuff. It shouldn't just be GW stuff all the time. Their stuff's fantastic. Loads of people love it, and those people are searching for that stuff. It doesn't need to be fed out to like everybody. Like some of the comments I've had was from like people who play like D&D and stuff, and said, never seen one of your videos before. I don't even watch GW videos, but this has been kind of sent to me, and I completely understand what you're saying, kind of thing. So there's been loads of support. I've been 90% of people have been super nice, and that's been nice to see. I've got to chat to folks that I probably wouldn't have chatted to before. I guess we probably wouldn't have chatted if it hadn't been for that. So so there's some positives have come out of it. But yeah, like I always say, like the nice comments, you go, all right, okay, thanks very much, because you don't want to believe your own hype, kind of thing. It's the nasty ones where you go, ooh, that digs a little bit. Like that's not very nice, kind of thing. I felt that one kind of thing. Like that's a bit that cuts a bit close to the bone. But yeah, it's interesting.
There's a really good TED talk. Something with my background things. I have all that on. And it's about it was like, yeah, something good happens, and your line is kind of like beep, and then you carry on, and something bad happens. You're down there, and then you stay down there, and then maybe another good thing happens, and you still go beep. It's like trying to get back up again. And absolutely.
It's just human nature. Unless you have a bit of an ego where you believe every good thing that's ever said about you is absolutely 100% true. I think most of us generally just like you don't want to accept all of that kind of, whether it be praise or whether it's kind of a pat on the back or a little bit of positive sort of like somebody supporting you. Sometimes you almost like, oh no, because if I believe that, then I have to believe the bad stuff as well because they're coming from the same place kind of thing. It's a tough one.
My friends can't win because if my friends buy my stuff, I'm like, they're only buying it out of pity. And then if they don't buy it, I'm like, my stuff's so crap, even my friends don't buy it. Can't win.
Absolutely. There's some more.
Oh, people say some nasty stuff online. I tend to fill most of it out. And what made me happy was when I started seeing absolutely stunning things that I think, whoa, that's obscenely good. And someone'd make a dicky comment in there. And I'm like, well, if that's getting the comments, then yeah, don't take it personally. Absolutely.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
I haven't seen any of the chat because my phone died. So
that's right. So we got a few comments in here. I mean, there's been so many tonight. Thank you, first of all, everybody that's been in the chat tonight. It's been a really lively chat, and it's been nice to kind of let you all chat amongst yourselves while we have a bit of a natter as well. But there's been some comments in here about Minis, Models and Mayhem. Good evening, mate. He says that my tin foil hat theory about GW and the algorithm. I think he kind of thinks that GW are influencing the algorithm, almost kind of like paying YouTube to push it to the front, which would not surprise me if I'm perfectly honest. Prawn Toucher says, I must admit, I'd originally written discourse off for someone just putting out GW clickbait. After watching her chat with Andy, I've gone back and watched her stuff, and I was doing her a big disservice. I'll be honest. I had a very similar kind of experience when I saw some of her stuff. Like the thumbnails are obviously very clickable
like
kind of thing.
Arrow going down.
I'd seen the comments online about her being very anti-GW and that kind of stuff. And then we were both going to like an event at the same time. So we both got asked to go and be Oh, there's Siri talking to me from my iPad there. We were both asked to. I don't. What on earth? Let me turn that down while it's talking to me there. Now my phone's going now as well. It's all going crazy. We were both asked to go to a God tier event with Steamforged Games, and we were. And it was, I think it was UK Games Expo the weekend beforehand as well. And I'd sent her a message because we were in a couple of Discord groups together, and I'd said, "Oh look, like I'm going to UK Games Expo. If you want to meet for a cuppa or something, because we're both going to the thing the weekend after. I don't know anybody else. It would be nice to at least know somebody before I get there, kind of thing." So we met up. We had a few beers and that and stuff. We ended up there was a big sort of group of us went for dinner on the evening and stuff like that. We had a right good laugh, just chatting background, chatting hobby, and that was when I kind of sort of realised she actually just like plays loads of other games. Like it's not like that kind of stuff. And when I watch the stuff, it's like actually there's a load of research in there. There's a load of effort goes into that. Yeah. I actually agree with what she's saying. And I said this to her as well, that basically like I think we both agree with most of like 99% of the stuff we agree with, but I think we get there from two different angles. Like she might think about it one way, I'll think about it a different way, but we both agree on the same thing. So we kind of just got chatting through that stuff and that, and actually like I think I misunderstood what our channel was about based upon what I'd read rather than what I'd watched. Yeah, but she's a lovely girl. I really like our chats. We chat quite often now, just chatting sort of YouTube and video ideas and bits and pieces and things like that. But yeah, I think a lot of the flack that she gets is because there are a lot of people very, very protective of GW and don't really want any criticism. And it's not necessarily anti-GW. Yeah. It's just critique and comments about the cost of things, or it might be about business practices, or it might be about, like, she still plays the games, like she still buys the stuff, like she's not like kind of like trying to like burn them to the ground kind of thing. She just like she feels passionate about certain elements of the business side of things.
I think I'm partially envious of the GW support gang, basically. It's like, if anyone ever said anything slight about Bad Squiddo, and everyone would go, "Get out of here!" I'd be like,
That's it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
maybe I'm a bit jealous. I'm like, oh yeah.
I think you've got your own army as well. I think you'll be fine. Yeah. I think you'll be fine.
I've occasionally seen the odd thing, and I'm there going, because obviously I have to be like, nope, Annie, don't reply.
Step away.
Nice professional business. But then someone else will be there going, how dare you? And I'm like, yes. So like, my little bravery is giving it a like.
Yeah. Somebody fight my battles, because I'm not allowed to publicly shame this person. Because I guess the other side of it as well is, and it's something I'd not thought about. I was watching something. What was it I was watching? It was kind of like celebrities, really. So I'm not suggesting that we're celebrities, but it was about people who have a bit of a following, who will say something online. Somebody will kind of come back at them with some kind of arsey comment, and then if they then go, well, you're a bit of a dick kind of thing, people who like that person then all pile on, and this one person who wasn't very nice all of a sudden gets very bullied from a massive group of people, because this celebrity's got like a big crowd of people who actually and there's an element of that kind of happens with the whole GW thing. You say something kind of not towing the line of what like people who are big fans of it believe, and then all of a sudden there's this angry mob with their pitchforks who all, well, you can't say that kind of thing. And generally I don't really make GW videos, and even this wasn't really a GW video, but like,
you're the GW hate guy now, though.
Apparently, yeah. I'm basically.
You make videos for however many years, and then...
yeah. You know what to say. You're only as good as your last job, kind of thing. Is I definitely. But then obviously, I'm now basically in the same gang as Discourse. Now we've been taught together with the same brush.
I'm here now.
Well, that's it now. Yeah. So.
I was like, oh, is this controversial? I was kind of waiting to see if anyone would be like, we going on that for?
I'm not big enough for anybody to even know who I am for you to be going on big one. And they go, start GW guy. Oh no.
What's she doing on that channel?
But I tell you what, you almost have to kind of police who you speak to when that's the kind of stuff comes up. But don't you? It's like I can imagine it's like, oh, am I back on the right team here, kind of thing.
Yeah. So after I've been like, oh yeah, I really like this, and then people are going, this is bad. I'm like, oh crap.
Oh damn.
What have I missed?
Not only did I enjoy it, I don't know why I'm not allowed to enjoy it anymore.
That's my fear, that I'll go on something and then afterwards notice that I was accidentally on like Arch Warhammer.
Well, Discourse has said to me, when she's pretty much like online, some of the chatters, she's pretty much lumped in with him. Like, like Discourse and Arch, they're just like the scourge of the hobby kind of thing. And it's like, oh damn, I am now as well, and I'm in the same gang.
Melvin thrown in.
Simon Dave says, it blows my mind how people could get so angry for you at that video. You'd be surprised how angry people can get, my friend.
One of my friends was behind the recent petition about the Horus Heresy thing. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
And I could kind of get, because it was quite hard if you're not in that sort of world, I could kind of get how some people wouldn't see the issue. But it was about some of the language they'd used. It was probably accidental, came across as a bit of the anti-trans stuff.
Yeah.
So they wrote a petition, and it was really like non-offensive. And it starts off by saying it's not about female Space Marines.
Yeah.
I don't even want female Space Marines. It's just polite notes. Could you maybe get a sensitivity reader? Here's some suggestions of a phrase. Love your stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like the least offensive. And they've been getting death threats, all sorts. And this was about like 3 weeks ago or something. And I've seen some of the stuff they've been getting, and it's foul. It's full of like, I will come, literally stuff like, I will come to your house and kill you, and like all this stuff. And then again, it's people haven't read it, so there's quite a bunch on Twitter, and they're like, look, people trying to ruin the hot. I'm like, what? How are you so angry?
I keep trying to understand it, because I like to always I like to always try and kind of see things from both sides.
Yeah.
Make my own opinion up, kind of thing. But at least try and understand where is somebody else coming from. But there's some of that kind of stuff where I just physically can't see, like. People are passionate about stuff. I get that, and people are passionate about fandoms, whether it's Star Wars or whether it's Lord of the Rings or whatever it is, Games Workshop. People are passionate about stuff, but to get like that annoyed about something that's not real, like I'm gonna
threaten to kill somebody.
Yeah, I find that because how easy is it to just go. Like block. I don't want to see their stuff anymore. Even you can just walk away from arguments. Like somebody can say something you don't agree with. You can just walk away from that. But
I learned
people
this
tend
from
not to.
Bad Squiddo, because I used to lose a lot of my life arguing on forums.
Yeah.
And on Facebook and stuff, because I felt like I had to reply, and because I can't now, just blocking people on my Twitter, I'll just block them. It's amazing. Like, they're never gonna buy my stuff, so it doesn't matter. Block them, block them. I now have the rest of my day. I get so wound up. I just think all that's happened is, and it's that whole sea lion thing where like they've got my attention and they've took all my energy for the day, and they're just there going, yeah. Seriously, it's a waste.
I'll get pulled in. I tend to try and, like, if a video kind of kicks off like that, I tend to try and spend like the first few hours when it's live answering some of the comments as they come in, because they start coming in quite kind of quick. And I think I spent 3 hours answering comments, and then it got to a point where they were coming in faster than I could keep up, and it was like, I'm not going to bother. What I'll do is I'll wait for it to quieten down. Yeah, he thought.
Yeah.
and I'll kind of catch up on them later. It never hasn't quietened down, to be fair. But I did get into a conversation with one person where I was trying to say, like, well, that's not what I mean, and he was like arguing back, and it's like, no, but I said it, like I know what I meant, like you can't disagree with me, that was me in the video that you're talking to there, like if I'm telling you that's not what I meant, then that's not what I meant, and I ended up just going round in circles, and it was like, yeah, this is not going well, like I'm not gonna convince somebody that what I'm saying is like right, like even if it was right. So yeah, you can get caught up in that kind of stuff.
Oh, definitely.
We got some comments here saying, can we get an Annie model with a hat? I'll buy that. Have you got Annie models with hats? There you go.
Who said that? Are they trolling?
No, Colin Mack. I think it's probably yeah.
New hats.
Yeah. Tony Oates is saying, I need a set of Annie minis when I get my Final Girl Kickstarter drops. Do you know what Final Girl is? So Final Girl is a game.
Oh, I know the
it's like
it is, but not as a game or anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, no. So the
Final Girl trope.
But so there's a game called Final Girl, which is essentially like a horror story type thing where you play the character of the final girl and they're trying to escape from whatever monster and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different like settings. So there's kind of like abandoned camp. Like school camp, there's the kind of like the high school at night time and all this, and then there's lots of different final girls and lots of different monsters, and you can basically mix and match them, and it's a game. But you can obviously like play it with like miniatures as your tokens and stuff like that as well. So I think somebody's looking for minis for that one. Probably.
I don't know if I'd be a good final girl. I'd probably be like the first to die.
Not at all. You just get
final girl going, how am I still alive? This is scary.
Just going, hang on a second. You just keep that axe to one side. I'm in the middle of an argument on Twitter here. Just give me 5 minutes. I'm a bit tired.
You need like a sort of zombie hunter Annie. That'd be good actually. Call the Annies.
Ah, yeah. Right, write it all down. Apparently we're talking about having a Game of Jones says Annie in a flamingo hat. I think Flamingo Land seems to have taken off here. Actually, we've got
Flamingo Land.
Yeah, Flamingo Land-based skirmish game. I think we're asking for here. Someone says no one expects the Flamingo Land expedition. Could we have Flamingo Land versus Lightwater Valley factions? Northeast theme park wars. Yeah, we absolutely could, mate. Yeah. Mark saying versus Alton Towers and maybe resurrect Camelot as a side faction. Absolutely. I think there's a Gulliver's World as well, isn't there? Gulliver's World's a bit of an old one. I remember that one. Somebody asking for a Lightwater Valley meetup as well. I think we've just that's it now. Jez says you can't criticise GW or Elon Musk or the neckbeards get sweaty angry. It's really odd.
The NFTs.
Mini Models and Mayhem says keep your Flamingo Land. I live near Bird World.
Oh.
I bet Bird
Well, I
World.
used to live near World of Boats.
There's a world of boats, not just
World of
boats.
Cardiff Bay. There
Wow.
you go.
Matt Lumley says, but does Bird World have wild animals, wilder rides? Nice bit of advertising there,
Yeah,
yes.
it is. Oh, that's it. You've got Big
That's it.
Gulliver in the
Oh,
comments.
that's
Big Gulliver. But with the saying about that sort of toxic GW hobby, when I popped in the chat last week, and it was because I'd watched your video, so I'd watch the video and then give you a subscribe, and then I tend to fall asleep.
I appreciate it. Yeah,
every subscribe does matter, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Of the video.
As Tesco would say, every little helps. Yeah.
But yeah, I tend to just listen to some crap while I go to sleep. And I was kind of browsing through, and you were on live, so that's when I did. I was just like about to go to sleep and sort of popped in, and then a bunch of you in the comments were like, "Hi, Annie," and I was like, so a few comments, but there were people talking about not wanting to get into historical because of the community.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, no, because. Again, it's not that I find that the forward decay is, but I do find obviously that there are very toxic parts of that hobby. I know you said with everything, but part of what I'm doing is trying to make historical cool. So it is great. There are wicked people, and that image of that rivet counter thing, they obviously exist, but it's not. There's places where those people aren't. But unfortunately, they're always the dominant ones, aren't they? You get somewhere and they're like, playing World War II, are you? Like, no.
I think you'll find that Pantone reference for that epaulette is completely wrong.
I was so put off by historical for so long because that's what I thought, and I thought I'm going to look stupid. Like you, I think it was the guy on last week was saying, I'm worried I'd get a bit wrong. And, and that used to be me. I'd be like, I look like an idiot. Well, a lot of my historical knowledge is a bit crap because I'm a millennial and we weren't taught very much.
No, I had the same conversation. I never got taught World War II stuff at school. But it's interesting because I did a video a while ago. Warlord Games sent me a paint set, which was from Army Painter, but it was intentionally basically, so this is for painting a German force kind of thing. And there was a step-by-step guide in the back, and they sent me one for the Americans. So I did a video basically saying and funnily enough, I think I titled it about who needs contrast paints randomly. But there you go, clickbait it. But so I did the video. This is I've never played sort of historical games before. I've got these models. I'm following the thing on the back of the box. This is how they look. I think they turn out pretty well. And because they're telling you what you can get, you don't really have to worry about getting it wrong. Or did I get the comments about, well, actually, you did get it wrong? And it's like, I can't get it wrong. Those are the paints they sent me. It tells you on the back of the box which ones to use. I'm really sorry. They sent me these models. They sent me those paints. I put the two together, and I can't help it if it's wrong. So it was interesting.
There's a really good picture. I can't remember what it is. I think it's German uniform, but it's rows. It's 30 shirts or something like that. All in different colours because it's all the different weathering and stuff, but it's all the same issued shirt, and it's there you go. There is no correct colour.
I know.
When I made my first historical, full historical, the Soviets, I was so stressed. I had sleepless nights that I'd done something wrong, and it was all the spare money I had. Basically, I'd poured that release, and thinking all the little details. If somebody, kind of goes, well, that whole thing's wrong. I'm like, oh no.
God, I can. Yeah.
And luckily it was fine. And I started finding some decent people to play historical games with, and and there were people that, because I'd kind of gone, there's no point me pretending to know stuff, because it's not how you learn. It was I'm just gonna ask questions, and these people aren't awful, so I'll see how it goes. And I'd say because people would be, I'd think, oh yeah, they go, well, that's armed with a blah. I'm like, well, I don't know what gun that is, so that means nothing to me.
I know. And it's a real shame because actually, if somebody who knows nothing is trying to get into it, those are exactly the kind of people you should be welcoming with open arms, because it's not they're not coming from a background of historical knowledge and stuff. They might want to learn that kind of stuff because actually that gets kind of cool. It's like learning the law in the background for any game kind of thing. Like, but this stuff actually happened. Like, there's millions of books about it, and there's movies made about it, and there are documentaries about it. So you think there'll be more sort of wanting to drag people in and kind of sort of like, yeah, come, you know, we'll kind of take you by the hand and lead you through. But yeah, it's a shame. But yeah, I think I'm hearing about it a little bit at the minute around Horus Heresy stuff as well. I think that's almost like GW's historical game where people are really passionate about yeah, where people are super passionate, because I think there's a bit of a kind of like almost a feeling of kind of rivet countery.
Yeah, with that.
Yeah, with that as well.
Yeah, and you're like, that's not real, so it's even worse. But with the historical, it was traditionally all those sort of mega mass battles, really unappealing rules, because they were, you know, on that been photocopied 50 times.
Yeah.
And I think it has got a lot more accessible. So you've got Bolt Action, Saga.
Yeah.
Some even with like the pulp mixing of some of My Brain's Died, the Napoleonic Osprey one.
So
it's called a thing.
Sharp. Is that Sharp Practice or?
No, but that's also. But some of those Osprey books as well. But there's more of those sort of almost box games. Dead Man's Hand of Great Escape Games, where it's like you do need a level of being told what to do. Because when I came from nothing, it was kind of like I don't know what brown to put on the guys.
Yeah.
And when I painted my first Dark Ages stuff, I got so stressed over. I was looking at all these different natural dyes and what colours you might get and everything, and it was stressing me out. And now I'm just like, it's some browns and any colour, just mix it with grey a bit, and it's fine. And then anyone that would be awful about it, you don't want to play them anyway.
Absolutely.
But having those sets already, so like the set you got, that just makes such a big difference.
It just takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
Especially when people, because some of the companies are, I said, they're kind of a bit stuck in the old ways.
Yeah.
They're a bit like, oh, these fancy GW. I'm like, what GW are doing is working. So again, if you can bounce off that, if you can go, here's your starter set. Yeah. Here's your paint set.
Look at the stuff that's working. Yeah. Exactly.
And package it nicely. It's not in a
just put it in a plastic bag,
but that's what's been working. So I'm glad that they're sort of, well, it's been a while now, but they're picking up a bit more.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of riding that a little bit, because obviously I'm adding the female characters into some of that.
There's nothing wrong with that, is there? Nothing wrong with that at all.
Nobody was doing women in World War II, but it worked out all right for me.
Andrew Smith says, BBC Two Saturday afternoons taught me all I need to know about World War II. Guns of Navarone, Iron Coast, Mosquito Squadron, Battle of the River Plate. It was a channel education service. Captain F. Castle says, that's what turned me off Bolt Action. I'm colourblind and was too stressed about getting it wrong. I can imagine that, mate, Prawn Toucher saying, Annie's Soviets are incredible. Nice bit of praise for your Soviet models there.
Thank you.
Minis Models Mayhem saying uniforms were made with different materials, different factories. There's full of variation. I think that's kind of I think that's generally acceptable. For some reason, there's the odd one or two people who want to make a big deal about it sometimes randomly.
Well, especially with because the largest World War II range we've got is the Soviets, because they had the full front line thing going on, so naturally got more of them. And when I've gone from being so sort of worried about it to almost the other end of like, it could be anything, like especially on the Eastern Front, like you're just picking up weapons and uniforms from wherever you go. Exactly. And I kind of wanted that look, because they're not all going to be in the issued uniform. You know, at some point you've nicked some guy's coat, and that might be a German coat. So I've got one of the figures has got a Panzerfaust that she's nicked off somewhere. She's like, because that's what war is. Well, not everyone in there, you know, they're not out for a march in there.
It's not like first day working at Asda. He's in his green uniform. There's your badge. Come on, let's get you out. Let's get you out in the tanks. It's like it's like.
Wasn't that gun a bit old? I'm like, because after that point they just got rid of all those guns. They ceased to exist. There's no point where they've gone, oh yeah, that'll do, that is a gun. You know, stuff like that. And I've seen it sometimes where like someone will like one of my customers will post something, and then they'll be like, oh, I'm really proud I've done this paint job, and someone will appear and go, well, why are they? So that's what I do, go, you leave them alone.
It never amazes me how much people want to tell somebody that the mini that they've painted for themselves isn't up to the standard or the colours choices that they wanted for their mini. It's like, well, it's not for you. It's for me. Yeah, that's what's weird.
And I think it's the like catch-22 again of like the internet's great for meeting fellow hobbyists and stuff, but it's also the curse because that guy is amplified.
Oh, 100%.
You know, they're the people that say stuff. Whereas, you know, if you go to a gaming club, there might be that guy and you kind of ignore him. He has like a bigger platform online.
Absolutely.
And if you're new to something, it can be daunting. And yeah,
definitely.
If you're in the wrong part of the internet or something where everyone's a bit grim. But some of the old forums are just like...
Yeah, I remember those
and it's
days.
that, like, they're always talking about how the young'uns aren't playing anymore. And it always reminds me of... like, really? In this, like, horrible, sexist, homophobic environment? And it reminds me of... always think of Neverending Story when he runs into the bookshop. And yeah, the guys are immediately like, go play your video games, you know, in your beepty beeps. And he's like, no, I do, I read all of these books. And it's kind of like, of course there's young people playing games, you willies. But they're not playing what they want them to play. They're not playing, you know, mass Napoleonic battles or whatever.
No.
And it's like, yeah, they're not playing what you want to play because things change, but they're still playing and they're enjoying it. They may have less models. It may be a Marvel game or something.
And actually, if you're a bit more inviting, they might find that at some point as well. Like rather than trying to scare them away. Like some people are playing those games because you're not like kind of making them feel welcome. I've just noticed the time. Actually, I've kept you way longer than you were. So thank you for sticking with me for so long, especially in this melting heat. But we should do this again. I've enjoyed this chat. We should definitely do it again.
I feel back.
Yeah, 100%. You can. Yeah.
When I'm shunned from everywhere else now.
Well, that's it.
Marked.
Yeah. Now I've just basically cut you off from the rest of the wargaming community. Yeah, you're welcome to come back here and come and tell me how bad I am and try and get redemption. You might be welcome back at that point. You can come on and tell me how bad I am live, and that'll kind of get you some back. But thanks to everybody in the chat tonight. Thank you so much. It's been a really fun chat. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Something a little bit different. We're just kind of chatting Bad Squiddo and chatting industry, chatting hobby, chatting just shooting the breeze a bit. So
it was nice, informative, and fun.
Yeah, it was interesting hearing like some of the thoughts and background about like kind of, I think just explaining some of the stuff that you kind of, you know, that you go through kind of to get a model on a shelf in a shop. Basically, there's a lot more I think than people remember. So thanks everyone. I'll be back again next Monday. There'll be another video later this week, less controversial, more hobby focused. And I'll see you all next Monday. Thank you again, Annie. And check out Annie on Twitter and Instagram. It's Bad Squiddo Games, and also head over to, is it badsquiddogames.com? Is that right?
It is.
Check them out and go and treat yourself to some fantastic female miniatures or some pigs.
Some pigs. Some great bones.
But yeah, thanks very much, and I will see you all next week.